subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
4. The father of the boy who was rescued looked back at Logan again and saw that his complexion was getting worse and worse, as if he had vented more and breathed less. Can't wait for Stark to show up. We have to take him to the hospital. Among the crowd, a sexy beauty with big red waves and a figure so good to burst suddenly rushed out. My car is right outside. Carry him to the car? Quick! Storm and Cyclops looked at each other and wanted to find Lynn. Jean Grey was already moving. When psychokinesis was activated, Logan's body floated up by itself, and under her guidance, he quickly moved towards the door. Everyone quickly moved away. This scene appeared on the live broadcast screen, like a freeze frame, and countless pairs of eyes saw it. Wherever Logan passed, the dripping blood on his body formed a red blood road on the ground. The eyes of the audience turned red one after another. God bless him! The appearance of the red-haired beauty surprised Lynn. Black Widow. He asked for all the invitations Tony received, so Pepper did not participate in this expo. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Black Widow, who is Xiao Zhao's secretary, came secretly. She has obviously been observing the development of the matter, and it is not surprising that she suddenly appeared at this moment. In all likelihood, she has received an order from S.H.I.E.L.D. What happened tonight will definitely cause huge amounts of sensation, and the 4 X-Men who turn out to be the most watched existence in the audience. If S.H.I.E.L.D. want to find out the truth, it must make contact. It's a good way to take Logan to the hospital, isn't it? Lynn, Tony, do you want to go and have a look? Shadowcat asked softly. Lynn shook her head without hesitation. That's Tony's personal vendetta, and it's definitely up to them to sort out. His eyes were clear and calm, as if he could see through everything. Without those Iron Soldiers and the War Machine, the Whip is just another stepping stone to Iron Man's fame. While speaking, he moved his eyes lightly and locked on Justin Hammer on the stage. Mr. Hammer is the real protagonist tonight. Taking advantage of the diversion of everyone's attention, this prominent arms dealer was quietly and slowly retreating at this moment, obviously wanting to leave secretly. How could Lynn let him do what he wanted? Although the confusion curse is only a second-level magic, it is still very useful. Accompanied by his laughter, a team of heavily armed NYPD agents appeared from a gate, and as soon as they entered, they went straight to Justin Hammer. Mr. Hammer, NYPD invites you to go back for coffee and explain what happened tonight. Justin Hammer staggered, instantly collapsed to the ground. On the other side, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff stepped on the gas pedal, showing a driving skill not inferior to that of a professional racing driver. Logan, who was severely injured, lay unconscious in the back seat. The 3 of Jean Grey drove another car and followed closely behind. Gentlemen, Natasha Romanoff spoke again and again, only to find that Logan didn't respond at all, so she relaxed. Nick Fury's voice came from the headset. Natasha Romanoff, take him directly to the nearest base number 3. Level 5 Agent Gemma Simmons is already on standby there. She is our best doctor and biologist. Clear, Natasha Romanoff quickly responded. Even if he can't save his life, I can still take this opportunity to contact 3 other people. That's right, it's definitely not a coincidence that these mutants appear at the expo. I want to know their purpose. Nick Fury's voice is unmistakable. After a pause, he added, I have asked Phil Coulson to lead the team there. If this mutant dies in the end, and you can't gain the trust of the other people, we must at least make sure to keep his body. As soon as this remark came out, Natasha Romanoff's eyes trembled violently. Chapter 26, Don't be afraid that mutants have abilities, but be afraid that mutants have brains. Boss, you want to study mutant? In her mind, she unconsciously remembered the anti-human experiments she had seen in SHIELD's materials. Although the military has been secretly using mutant for experiments, it is not visible. Do we have to? Just in case, Natasha Romanoff. Nick Fury's voice slowed down slightly. He knew that Natasha Romanoff had received brutal agent training in the Red House, so he hated this kind of experiment that abandoned humanity. This order is very likely to arouse her resistance. In order not to let the best agent under his command think too much, Nick Fury hesitated for a while and could only explain, "Well, Natasha Romanoff. I actually know the identities of these mutants." Natasha Romanoff was taken aback. "You know, that's right," Nick Fury quickly said. "They belong to the X-Men established by a top-level mutant. They are among the mutant group, tending to the human side, and are committed to combating mutant crimes. I have to say that the X-Men have really failed in these years. Even though they have saved the world more than once, they have almost no reputation. Even among the official human forces, only a handful of people know of their existence. This is, of course, because of low-key, but the official deliberate blockade is also indispensable. Otherwise, it is impossible for Black Widow, who is a level 9 SHIELD agent, to know nothing about it. Only today, due to the live broadcast of the expo, the X-Men appeared in the public eye extremely abruptly. Regarding their existence, it is obviously impossible to block it. Director Nick Fury had no choice but to reveal to his subordinates. According to top-secret information, this mutant named Wolverine was once a member of the military's Weapon X program. His super ability is the self-healing factor and adamantium bone claws. Even if he is headshot, he can the kind that came alive. Under normal circumstances, it is impossible for him to be blown up like this by a howitzer. Now that he has become like this, there must be another reason. If we can leave his body behind, it will be equivalent to having a bargaining chip to get in touch with that top mutant. Most importantly, the X-Men have never been so high profile. I have a hunch that what happened today seems to be controlled by an invisible hand secretly. I need to know the truth, Natasha Romanoff. Do you understand? After speaking in one breath, Nick Fury felt that his attitude towards his subordinates was already gentle enough. Unexpectedly, Natasha Romanoff did not respond for a long time after listening. A hint of sullenness crept into my heart. Natasha Romanoff. Boss, did you just say that this big man can come back to life even if he dies? After a long time, Natasha Romanoff's voice sounded again. Nick Fury was inexplicable. That's what the intelligence said. What's wrong? I think I overlooked one thing. Natasha Romanoff sighed softly. The companion is seriously injured. Why did the other 3 mutants hand him over to me without worry, but just drive behind? According to common sense, they should leave at least one person in the car to look after them, shouldn't they? Nick Fury's voice sank suddenly. What do you mean? It means this guy may not be what we saw at all. He was not seriously injured at all. Natasha Romanoff voiced her guess. Nick Fury was shocked. Why are you so sure? Because he's gone. The vehicle was already on the side of the road, and Natasha Romanoff turned to look at the empty back seat with an extremely ugly expression. I don't know when it was, and I don't know what happened, but he suddenly disappeared. She felt inexplicably being played. Missing. Nick Fury gasped, not because of Wolverine's sudden disappearance, nor because of Wolverine's suspected fake injury, nor because this scene means that the X-Men's high-profile appearance tonight is probably not a coincidence. As long as he is given a little time and a little more information, he can find out. The reason why he is like this is purely because it is unbelievable. Could it be that X-Men? Are you selling miserably? Great crab special. Thinking of this possibility, Nick Fury felt his scalp go numb. Although the large-scale emergence of mutant has attracted the attention of countries all over the world, many people are worried about it, thinking that mutant will pose a huge amount of threat to human beings. But in fact, for people at his level, mutant has never been a human being. What a big deal. Because the abilities of most mutants are very weak. A small number of elite mutants also split into 2 camps. Professor X? Just a good guy with a strong ability. Magneto? A lunatic who only knows how to play tricks and thinks of summoning mutants to fight against humans every day. Not to mention that no matter what he does, he will be blocked by the Professor X faction. Even if he does succeed, humans have many ways to deal with it. The military's X-Weapon program, Super Soldier program, various hidden biochemical transformations, genetic modification laboratories. SHIELD also controls Tesseract, Captain Marvel, and Avengers in the works. Too many cards. Because of this, Nick Fury's gaze rarely stays on Mutant. What he wants to pay attention to is the universe, the alien civilization, and the safety of the entire Earth. To some extent, he doesn't like mutants. When it is really necessary, it is the greatest respect for this group to recruit a few powerful mutants to work under his command, because he never felt that super ability meant everything. As an ordinary person, he controlled the huge power of SHIELD, relying on wisdom and means. And in his opinion, both. Neither Professor X nor Magneto. But now, the situation seems to have changed. Make a high-profile appearance, forcefully sell miserably, win the sympathy of the public. What are the X-Men doing here? Don't be afraid that Mutant has a super ability, but be afraid that Mutant has a brain. Looks like it's time to talk to Professor X. Nick Fury whispered in his heart, and suddenly realized that there seemed to be some unknown changes in the mutant group that he had been ignoring. He hates change, because change means uncontrollable. Chapter 27, Tony's shock. I might be a mutant? As Lynn expected, Tony quickly took care of the whiplock. It's just that the time it takes is far more than 3 minutes. Ivan Vank, a mad scientist with a twisted mind, is far inferior to him in controlling the armor, but the pair of lightning whips are really unpredictable. The dignified Iron Man almost flipped over. If it weren't for the surge in energy provided by the new reactor, and the weapon system of the Mark VI battlesuit had also been greatly improved, it is not certain who will win this duel. When he finished everything, he dragged his tired body back to Stark Building. There was a loud bang in the air. Nailed it. Lynn's figure appeared with a burst of space distortion and looked at him with a half smile. Didn't you say 3 minutes? I've been waiting for you for almost 30 minutes. Tony blushed. Well, I admit that guy's a bit difficult. One by one, the mechanical hands reached out and quickly helped him take off the battle suit. He couldn't help rubbing his old waist. Although the reactor he made is very backward, he concentrated most of the energy on the two whips. Very powerful. Lynn snapped her fingers and the white magic light flickered. But in an instant, Tony felt the aches and pains all over his body were gone. After staying up all night for a few consecutive nights and the exhaustion from a big battle, all of them dissipated. You guys find a flash out of thin air, but you can still heal. Tony was stunned for a moment, and then he sighed with envy. Magic! So amazing! It's just a common healing technique. Lynn smiled lightly and made a suggestion. Since Ivan Vang's whip is so powerful, maybe you can equip the next generation of battle suits with a cold weapon? Kindness. Tony looked at him in surprise. One thing to say, your attack methods are actually quite scarce. Lynn shook her left and right hands, and 2 glasses of red wine appeared in her hands, and she handed a glass to Tony. It is completely dependent on hot weapons, but in many cases it is not as good as cold weapons. Could it be that you are exhausted and you can only fight with people? You don't always think that fists are better than swords, do you? Tony shook his head. He hadn't really thought about it. But obviously, in the battle tonight, Ivan Vank's 2 lightning whips had left a deep impression on him. You're right. I really should enrich my means of attack. He took a sip from the wine glass, and thoughtful eyes appeared in his eyes. If I build a large alloy sword and hang it on my back, isn't it handsome enough? Will it affect the image of Iron Man? But if it's just a built-in dagger, it doesn't seem to have that much power. As expected of Iron Man, his thinking is unconstrained. Lynn smiled. You could try it first, then do a survey, and adjust it at any time according to the popularity of the public. It's nothing more than spending a little money. He laughed and joked. Definitely, as a partner, if you ask, I can also help you build a magic sword. At that time, you can carry 2 swords on your back, use alloy swords to deal with ordinary enemies, and use magic swords to deal with powerful enemies. Wouldn't it be more handsome? Good guy. This is somewhat similar to the Witcher's outfit. Geralt the White Wolf, the humanoid pile driver. Not to mention, to some extent, he is really similar to Tony, a playboy. It's just that the picture is so beautiful that some people can't imagine it. It's a deal. When I finish evaluating the feasibility of installing a cold weapon system, I will definitely come to you. Tony smiled and clinked glasses with Lynn, and drank the wine in the glass. Then, he saw the wine reappear in the empty glass and increase little by little. FK, I hate magic. It makes me feel that the world of ordinary people is extremely shabby. Tony sighed deeply and then said very abruptly, "What happened tonight has something to do with you, right? Are you a mutant?" "That's right." Lynn nodded without any surprise on her face. There is no way to hide this from Tony. After all, from the very beginning, he made no secret of his interest in the Hammer Industry Expo. The invitation letters from Storm and the others were also obtained through Tony. With Tony's IQ, it's weird that he couldn't think of this. So, you already knew about Ivan Vank's conspiracy? Deliberately letting those mutants save people is to ease the hostile relationship between mutants and ordinary people. Tony was a little surprised by Lynn's frankness. In this case, why didn't you take a shot at that time? If you also shot, the big man would definitely not be hurt. Logan isn't hurt. That's just an illusion. Lynn smiled and shook her head. Fake. Tony trembled all over and looked at Lynn in disbelief. So, then it's just a show? Definitely not. Lynn looked at him with a calm and firm expression. Ivan Vank's conspiracy is true. The Iron Soldier's riot is true. And it is also true that thousands of people were almost killed on the spot. X-Men risked their lives to save them all. Why is it fake? It has to be said that these are impeccable facts. Tony's eyes quivered slightly. Understood, intentionally create a tragic scene of injury, win the sympathy of the public, and let the public know that there is such a part of mutant as heroes who are desperate to save others. So, as to reverse the image of mutant, there was a weird smile on the corner of his mouth, and he said, jokingly, "Is this a method in the business field, packaging and operating X-Men as a commodity?" Lynn, what a genius you are. Do you want to use this method to change mutant situations step by step? As expected of an Iron Man with an explosive IQ, he guessed what Lynn was thinking right away. After a long time of trouble, it turns out that I am working with mutant. With Tony's character, he has no resistance to mutant. He just looked at Lynn with some doubts. Why don't you hide these things from me at all? Just because we are partners? Definitely not. Lynn looked at him speechlessly. First, except for a small number of mutants, most mutants are not malicious to ordinary people, but are forced by ordinary people to have no place to live. There's nothing to hide about turning mutants' image around. Second, having said that, Lynn had a strange look on his face. Why do you think we are just partners? Tony froze, not understanding what he meant. Let me give you some science. Mutants are divided into several types. Among them, the Delta-level mutants with the largest number of people have very weak abilities, and their appearance is no different from ordinary people, except that their physical qualities are far superior to ordinary people, such as strength and speed. Also like the brain, Lynn explained, in other words, not all mutants have super abilities, and it can even be said that the fact is completely opposite. Tony was still puzzled. Think about your father, Tony. Lynn smiled and drank the rest of the wine in the glass. Mr. Howard Stark, under the technological environment decades ago, not only developed the prototype of the arc reactor, but also found new elements. This at least a few hundred years ahead of the times, right? 1 step ahead is genius. 10 steps ahead is super genius. What about 100 steps ahead? Just smart. Is the word smart enough to describe it? So, you never thought about. Having said that, Lynn put away the cup and patted Tony on the shoulder. Your father, Howard Stark, could be a mutant, and his super ability is a very clever brain. Even this ability is inherited from you. Those words sounded like thunder in Tony's ears. He was stunned. My dad is a mutant? Ability also passed on to me? That rounding up means that I'm also a mutant? Great gift crap. Chapter 28 hot discussion on the internet. Mutant may also be a hero. Whether Howard Stark is a mutant or not doesn't really matter. It is impossible for Tony to dig up his father's grave to verify whether there is an X gene in Howard's body. So this question will never be answered. Lynn's move is just to leave a seed in Tony's heart. Although with Tony's character, he will not target mutant, and the cooperation between the two parties will not be affected by this. But giving him a sense of belonging to mutant will always have more advantages than disadvantages. Look, you are not just a partner with us. You may also be your own person. If mutant needs anything in the future, Are you ashamed not to help? Leaving Stark Building, Lynn's next stop is Xavier's school. In the principal's office. Boom! Lynn had just Apparatus and saw the four of X-Men gathered together. And Professor X was sitting in a wheelchair watching the news on TV. Exactly what happened on the fair floor. Hey Lynn boy, the magic effect on Wolverine Logan has ended, and his injuries have completely healed under the powerful self-healing ability. He stretched out his right bone claw, cut off the cigar with a chi sound, and put it in his mouth. But he glanced at Lynn. Although I have only been your teacher for a few days, before you cast a spell on me, shouldn't you have some minimum respect for the teacher? Like, tell me, perhaps because of living too long, Wolverine's temper is no longer as violent as when she was young. Or maybe Lynn is just a student. In short, he was not angry. I'm so sorry, Logan. Lynn rubbed her fingers lightly, and a flame buzzed out of thin air, slowly floated to Logan's mouth, and lit the cigar. After all, you are not a professional actor. If I told you in advance, I am afraid that the performance will not be effective. Seeing him being so upbeat, Logan took a puff in satisfaction. For the sake of lighting my cigarette, I will forgive you this time. No. To express my apologies. Lynn shook her head, looked at him seriously, and said, maybe I can help you recover your memory? As soon as this remark came out, Logan stopped smoking immediately. Restore memory? Even though he has seen Lynn's magical magic more than once, he still feels a little incredible. Charles can't help me. You can do it? You could try. Lynn smiled. I know a little bit of memory magic. Understand a little? Logan's heart trembled violently after seeing Lynn's methods. And then looking at Lynn's calm and indifferent expression, he was 100% sure that this so-called slight understanding could definitely be equated with proficient. This kid is too secretive. Thinking of this, Logan couldn't help breathing faster. Phoenix's eyes flickered, and the scene in the heart space appeared in his mind again. And he couldn't help but said, Logan, maybe you can let Lynn try it, since he is sure he won't let you down. Both Storm and Cyclops were a little surprised. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Kin's attitude towards Lynn seems to be different from before. Storm thought about it. She glanced at Professor X, and then at Lynn, feeling inexplicably flustered. It's only been a while, and Lynn's influence on Xavier's school and X-Men seems to be getting bigger and bigger. This is not a good sign. Whether it's the scene on the playground before or what happened tonight, it can be seen that this student acts very differently from Charles. He clearly knew about Ivan Vank's conspiracy in advance, but he didn't want to stop it. Instead, use this incident to enhance the reputation of X-Men. It's okay to force the X-Men to make a high-profile appearance. He went so far as to cast a spell on Logan, causing him to be seriously injured in order to arouse public sympathy. Obviously, for this student, as long as the goal can be achieved, the means are not important. This is by far the best student at Xavier's school. What if you accidentally go astray? Afraid it wasn't another Magneto. With this in mind, Storm feels a great responsibility. As a teacher, she believes that she needs to guide and prevent Lynn from going astray. He said in a cold voice, Okay, I'll talk about Logan later now. Lynn, don't you think you need to explain something? Explain what? Lynn looked at her in surprise. Definitely it's tonight. Storm was very dissatisfied with his attitude. I admit that what you said at the expo site is very reasonable. The X-Men should be the leader of the mutants, and they should slowly walk into the sun so that other mutants in the world give them hope. But that should be done in a planned way, step by step. Instead of entering the live broadcast unprepared like tonight and being seen by millions of people, that would cause us huge amounts of trouble. On this point, obviously Logan, Cyclops, Phoenix also hold the same attitude. Even if you want to reveal your identity, you should do it step by step. The meal should be eaten bite by bite. If you act too hastily, it may attract the attention of all parties and put X-Men and Xavier's school in crisis. Lynn scoffed at that. The best results can be achieved without preparation, isn't it? He looked at the news screen on the TV. In just a few hours, the internet has already been full of quarrels. At least 1/5 of the people are speaking for the X-Men. Most of these people just have pure admiration and sympathy for Logan. The other small group originally didn't reject Mutant, But after watching tonight's live broadcast, they firmly regard the X-Men as heroes. Right now, the public opinion that mutants aren't necessarily monsters, they could be heroes. It's already boiling to the sky. Lynn pursed her lips and glanced at the faces of Storm and the others one by one. When was the last time Mutant appeared frequently in the news? Oh, I remembered. It's time for the official Mutant Registration Act. Those words left Storm and the others speechless. Last time, those politicians wanted to push the Mutant Registration Act, and the news of mutant crimes was all over the TV. It seems that the whole world is against mutant. But this time, 1 in 5 people is speaking for mutant. Chapter 29 X Daily. Mutant documentary. Lynn, where did you get this data? Storm's eyes widened in disbelief. She definitely doesn't think that 1/5 is a small number. On the contrary, it is a miracle that so many people can publicly speak for mutant on the internet. Alice, say hello to Teacher Orolo. Lynn smiled. The next moment, under the astonished gazes of Storm and the others, the picture on the TV suddenly changed. A little girl in a red skirt was smiling and waving her arms. How are the teachers? The sound didn't just come from the TV, but also from the computer, the phone, and even from the cell phones of Storm and the others. Like an echo, resonating in the room. Great gift, Crab, special. Artificial intelligence. Everyone's hearts trembled. They had no doubts about the data, Lynn said. With the help of an artificial intelligence, the data was absolutely accurate. Only are so many people really starting to change their attitudes towards mutant? The four looked at each other, subconsciously looking at Professor X. Professor X showed a contemplative look on his face and finally said, Lynn, are you competing with the authorities for public opinion? More precisely, it's people's hearts. Lynn nodded and said every word. People's hearts are like an ocean, and the overwhelming public opinion is like a trickle of streams. When they gather together, they will become a huge trend. In the past, this general trend has always been in the hands of the enemy. Starting today, mutant, it has its own voice. The last sentence, like a thunderbolt, exploded in the office. Storm looked at each other. They finally understood why Charles valued Lynn so much just after reading a plan for saving mutant. Not only did he invest heavily in the Second World, but he even let Lynn do whatever he wanted. It's vision. This student's vision even exceeds Charles's to some extent. He obviously only took the first step, but he has already seen the scene 10 steps away. None of the things he did was done on a whim, and all of them were prepared and purposeful. So today's event on the surface is our high-profile appearance of X-Men. But in fact, it is the first time mutant has made a sound. Storm stared blankly at Lynn, speechless for a moment. That's right, if you don't make a song, you're done. It's a blockbuster. Lynn's smile was bright and gentle. The first time I spoke out, it set off a storm of public opinion that swept across the United States, and it will soon spread to other countries. Is it okay? Storm and the others didn't know how to respond. Even so, that's not all of your plans, is it? Professor X's eyes twinkled, and he clapped his hand with a smile. Okay, Lynn, don't be fooled, and teach us old guys who can't keep up with the times a good lesson. It is worthy of being the world's top spiritual ability practitioner. It's just that the last time I talked for 2 hours in the office, I knew Lynn better than anyone else. Definitely, people's hearts are changeable, and public opinion will be restricted or even blocked by human officials at any time. There was no complacency on Lynn's face. His eyes are still clear. For example, those rescued tonight, there are politicians, military generals, consortium bosses, and media mouthpieces. These people may be out of gratitude or out of the need to maintain their own image. In short, they're definitely willing to say a few good words for X-Men recently. But as time goes by, their attitude will eventually return to their interests. As long as it's profitable, they might be friendly to mutant one day and yell at mutant the next. There are also those viewers who watch the live broadcast. Many of them just got excited for a while, admiring the X-Men and sympathizing with Logan, and they helped mutant on the internet. The wind shifts and their attitudes are likely to shift. At that time, mutant's voice will naturally become smaller again, even submerged. So what we have to do is to make this voice louder and louder. Too big to hide. It's so big that it shakes the sky. Unknowingly, the rhythm of the conversation in the office once again fell under Lynn's control. Let the voice of Mutant shake the sky. Storm and Cyclops muttered to themselves, only to be deafened. All of a sudden, there was a feeling that everything I did in the past was meaningless. Phoenix felt Lynn's courage and unconsciously remembered the conversation in the spiritual space. Could it be that he could really try to control the evil power in his body? The cigar in Wolverine's mouth was almost burnt out. Professor X looked at Lynn thoughtfully. How can let this wave of sound shake through the sky? The first step, Channel. Lynn obviously had a plan in advance and said with a smile, the framework of the Second World Company has been set up. In the next step, in addition to large-scale recruitment, the promotion of Oasis will also be launched simultaneously. I plan to establish a new media company called Daily X. Then on the X Daily, open up an Oasis channel, a mutant special channel. Professor X nodded. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the familiar smile on Lynn's face and couldn't help but feel a sudden in his heart. You don't want to ask me for investment again, do you? I just invested $100 million in a building. Lynn, the Four of Storm. No need if there are no accidents. I will have a large sum of money in the accounts soon. Lynn curled her lips speechlessly, feeling a little disappointed in her heart. It is worthy of being the top spiritual ability user. Before he even opened his mouth, he felt something. It's a good plan. Professor X also smiled awkwardly. It's just that the media market has long been monopolized by major consortiums. It may be difficult for a newly established company to grab a share in a short period of time. It's the same sentence. Times have changed, Professor. The gleam in Lynn's eyes is called the advantage of the traveler. In the internet age, new media is the kingly way, and new media only needs one explosive point to detonate the whole world. Professor X and others looked at each other. What kind of explosive point? Nowadays, what is the hottest topic on the internet? It's the X-Men. Lynn sighed softly. With a snap of the fingers, accompanied by the sound of bang and bang, for Oasis game bracelets appeared in front of everyone in succession. Professor X already has one. Facing everyone's puzzled eyes, Lynn put away the smile on his face and said solemnly, I want to use your memories to create an exclusive X-Men documentary. Wolverine Logan's eyelids twitched violently. Good guy. I just said that I want to help myself restore my memory. It is to pave the way for the present. Chapter 30, Xavier's School God. There was a long silence in the office. Memory is undoubtedly the most taboo place for a person. No one likes their brains to be invaded. Why does Professor X always restrain the use of the mind ability? Because he knows very well that once he uses this ability on others, the possibility of becoming friends is basically cut off. Who wants to trust a person who can spy on his own brain at any time? Even if you believe it for a short time, it will definitely not last long. Once the seeds of doubt are planted, it will take hundreds of times and 1,000 times of effort to eliminate them. Just like the last time, Professor X couldn't resist probing Lynn's brain. Apart from being surprised by Lynn's performance, there was another most important reason. He knew that Lynn would most likely not get angry because of it. Why? Because Lynn came to show herself at that time. She must have been mentally prepared. So the detection failed. Professor X was shocked, but not disappointed. This time is different. Lynn actually proposed in public that she would borrow the memories of the 5 people present and make it into a documentary. Doesn't this reveal the secrets deep in their hearts to the public? But everyone will subconsciously reject it. Don't worry. Memory magic is different from what you think. I don't need to enter your brain. Lynn had expected this and explained, you just need to recall what happened at that time, and then I will take out this thread of thought. That is to say, things you don't want people to know. No, just remember it. As soon as these words came out, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Legiliancy. Professor X took a deep look at Lynn and pondered, what memories do you want to retrieve? The origin of the X-Men, the grievances with the Mutant Brotherhood. Lynn looked at Wolverine. Definitely, the most important thing is Logan. I have to say that Wolverine is definitely the one who has suffered the most in Mutant. With his current popularity, As long as he makes his sufferings public, I don't know how many people will cry. Wolverine frowned. I lost my memory. How do I recall it? Memories are never lost, only hidden. Lynn shook her head. If I'm not wrong, although you have lost your memory, you still occasionally recall some memory fragments, right? It's just that you can't connect them together and piece them together. That's right, I get a splitting headache every time. Logan immediately believed Lynn's words and immediately nodded heavily. As long as I can restore my memory, I will do it. Lynn looked at the three of Storm again. I still feel a little anxious. A tangled look appeared on Storm's face. Today's incident would have attracted the attention of all parties. Our identities will soon be exposed, and Xavier's school will no longer be safe. We are still so high profile at this time, which will definitely attract attention. Human official vigilance. In case they launch an operation against Mutant, we are unprepared. What will happen to the safety of the students? Obviously, she had been keeping a low profile for so many years, and suddenly became high profile, and it was difficult for her to adapt for a while. Stop fooling yourself, Teacher Orolo. Lynn hit him mercilessly. You don't really think that the existence of Xavier's school is a secret, do you? Storm froze. In these years, the X-Men have not been invisible all the time, but there must be traces of their past. How many people do you think in the high-level, military, and top consortiums that cooperate deeply with the government know? You guys hiding in Xavier Academy? When Lynn said this, she was even a little speechless. He knew that Wilhelm Stryker would launch an action against Xavier's school soon. And as the person in charge of the military's X-Weapon program, Wilhelm Stryker's military rank was Colonel. It is conceivable how many people above him know about the existence of X Academy. Storm thought that Xavier's school was safe, but it had been so many years without any accidents, but he didn't realize that this place has long been a bright target. The reason why no army came in was purely because I was afraid of Professor X and your strength, and I didn't have full confidence. Lynn hit the nail on the head and was merciless. In fact, this is the point he is most dissatisfied with Professor X and X-Men. Even if you are a dove mutant, you can't really treat yourself as a dove. The shotgun will go off at any time, and you still feel that the other party can't see you? Never thought about building a defense system for Xavier's school? So much so that in the plot of the movie, when Professor X and several X-Men were not at home, the Academy was easily captured by a special force of the military. This is outrageous. This Storm, Cyclops, and Phoenix were all speechless. It's still the same sentence. It doesn't make any sense to hide your head and show your tail. Lynn said, and glanced at Professor X. In fact, if I were the principal of Xavier College, I wouldn't be so low-key at all, and I would even open the enrollment and raise the banner of Mutant. Open enrollment? As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the three of Storm widened. How can this be done? What about the safety of the Academy? That's not how security works, Lynn said loudly, with a look of contemptuous arrogance suddenly appearing in his eyes. Professor, I have done another small thing during these years in the Academy. Do you want to see it? Professor X's heart trembled violently. Back in the office, Lynn had the exact same look on her face. This kid is ready again. At this moment, even Professor X himself didn't realize that there was a look of hope on his face. Then, have a look? Have a look. Lynn smiled brightly and then stepped on the ground lightly under the suspicious eyes of everyone. The void trembled, and dazzling rays of light suddenly appeared, crisscrossing the ground, forming a strange and mysterious pattern, filling the entire room. Not just the principal's office. Through the window, the five people could clearly see a similar pattern of light appearing on the ground of the entire Xavier Academy, and it even extended towards the outside of the Academy. What is this? Magic circle? Lynn engraved a huge amount of magic circle within the entire Academy, and we didn't notice it. For a moment, unprecedented shock and surprise filled the minds of the five people present. Without waiting for them to ask, the ground suddenly trembled violently. Boom! It was as if there were dragons rolling and roaring out from the depths of the ground. The desks and chairs in the office shook violently. The teaching building seemed to collapse at any moment, yet it remained weirdly intact. Next moment, a strange sense of rising came. Cyclops, with the best eyesight, suddenly saw that in the extreme distance, at least 1 kilometer away from Xavier's school, a mountain that was originally above his line of sight suddenly fell short, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it came below the line of sight and then disappeared. Great Crab Special! An incredibly crazy idea suddenly appeared in Cyclops' mind. The giant magic circle that suddenly appeared put the entire academy on the sky. Xavier's School Heaven. Chapter 31, Mutant Base Independent of the World. The sudden movement quickly alarmed everyone in Xavier's school. As the Earth lifted into the sky, the power line broke, and the academy was suddenly pitch black. But this darkness only lasted for a few seconds, and the backup power supply was automatically turned on. What happened? Is there an earthquake? Everyone leave the room quickly and go to an open place. Where did the teachers go? Go find a teacher. A group of students who were resting in the dormitory ran to the playground one after another. Every face was full of panic and panic. Even the best among the students, such as Burning Man and Bishop, were no exception. This scene was definitely seen by everyone in the office. The expressions of Storm and the others were a little ugly. It was just a sudden situation, and the students were so panicked that they all became headless chickens. This is, in a way, undoubtedly, it shows the failure of their teaching. Jade can't be cut. Professor, you protect them very well. Lynn sighed softly, not surprised by this scene. Bao Jianfeng comes out of sharpening. Mutants are in danger of perishing at any time. Those wandering mutants, such as Wolverine, Polaris, etc., which one has not been weather-beaten and has gone through disasters. Although it may not be possible for everyone to be calm, they will never be in a state of confusion. On the other hand, these students in the college may have experienced hardships when they were young, but since they came to Xavier's school, they have been staying in the ivory tower and never experienced danger again. This is obviously of no benefit to the growth of the mind. This has a relationship with the college's teaching philosophy, which has huge amounts of Professor X wants students to grow up healthily and happily, but they ignore, although they are teenagers, they are mutant teenagers. The end result is that the number of students in Xavier's school is quite large. It may be called elite, but there are only a few of them. They were all taken away by Lynn at once. I'm in the world of Oasis, and I've opened up some mutant-specific dungeons. Starting tomorrow, all the students in the academy will go in and practice, Lynn said. Before Professor X could answer, a mirror image duplication shook out from his body, and another apparition appeared in the middle of the playground. What are you panicking about? A loud shout shook the audience, covering the roar of the earth, reaching the ears of all the students. Such a trivial matter, so flustered. The teachers are not here. You are all out of your mind. Professor X's eyelids twitched violently. Things outside don't matter. Lynn's attention is always in the office. The range of this magic circle is 3 kilometers in length and width. Although it is not big, it is enough to expand Xavier's school. He glanced at everyone and said in an orderly manner, "The magic circle is driven by solar energy, and it can rise up to 500 meters. It also has flight and invisibility functions. It's just that the defense system is still very rough, but it is enough for the time being. If a satellite detects it, all I saw was a void." Everyone listened, gasping one after another. 3 kilometers in length and width. Isn't that big enough? If this is expanded, how many mutants can it accommodate? Most importantly, an invisible zone that cannot be detected by satellites is still in the sky. Who can be against Xavier's school? This is simply a mutant base independent of the world. Lynn, UBD, you actually... Professor X's complexion changed again and again. For Lynn, even though he had already paid attention to it to the point where it couldn't be more important, he still didn't expect to have such a move. After 10 years of hiding, how much preparation has this student made? It's outrageous. The same idea was also surging in the minds of Storm and the others at the same time. In this situation, they still don't understand that what happened at the expo was just an introduction. Lynn's real purpose is to reform Xavier's school. Don't they think Xavier's school is not safe? Don't you think X-Men can't be exposed? Don't you think it's dangerous to rush to start a mutant channel and make an X-Men documentary? Don't you think that the college's open enrollment will lead to disaster? Okay, I directly made the academy invisible and disappeared from the world. Those forces that want to be unfavorable to mutant can only stare blankly at the huge pit that appeared out of thin air. Is this all right? Storm's face was flushed, his breathing quickened, and he didn't know what to say. It was really Lynn's handwriting, which was beyond her imagination. The same goes for Cyclops, Wolverine. Jean Grey's heart trembled, but she thought of something: the brainwave strengthening device and the Blackbird fighter plane in the underground of the academy. Do not worry. Lynn snapped her fingers, and a portal quietly appeared, but didn't stand still, but swiped from left to right. The figures of the 6 people present disappeared instantly. When it reappeared, it was already in midair. The levitation technique had already been applied to the 5 Professor X members in the midst of their thoughts. So at this moment, they felt as light as a hair floating in the air. But in front of him, there is a huge and incomparably large island slowly rising. A series of translucent rays of light spread around the island. The whole island is becoming transparent little by little. Great gift crab, Wolverine murmured unconsciously. In his eyes, it was as if a big invisible hand dug out a piece of the earth. This island was at least 100 meters deep. The underground building of Xavier's school is only 50 meters deep. So whether it's Charles's brainwave strengthening room, X-Men's Blackbird fighter, or even Jean Grey's research room, all must be safe and sound. There is no need to worry about energy issues. Lynn stretched out her palm, and an arc reactor appeared out of thin air in the palm. The college's backup power supply should last for a few days. After I modify the energy system, I can use this thing as the energy core. Under Professor X's puzzled gaze, he slowly said, based on the electricity consumption of the academy, this thing can be guaranteed for at least a few years. At that time, just build another large reactor. This is what he picked out from the Mark VI steel battlesuit after he helped Tony take out the shrapnel fragments in his body. Although some energy is consumed, it is more than enough for power supply. Just such a small thing. How many years can supply power? Wolverine Logan suddenly felt that the world had changed. Had you been unconscious for decades? Is the technology on Earth already so terrifying? No one suspected that Lynn was exaggerating. What happened tonight has completely convinced them. In my original room, there is a teleportation circle. The materials needed by the Academy can be sent in from there after purchase. Lynn smiled, threw the reactor to Logan casually, and looked at Professor X with burning eyes. In addition, that teleportation circle is connected to the hidden teleportation circle below, and people can pass through it if necessary. Send it over. The teleportation circle below. Everyone was startled, subconsciously looked down. I saw that the ground where Xavier's school was originally located was already a huge pothole with a depth of 100 meters. In the pitch-black nothingness, strange and mysterious magic patterns flickered a few times and disappeared out of thin air. Needless to say, this is again Lynn's backhand. In the future, if Xavier's school openly enrolls students, the registration point will still be at this location. Only who would have thought that jumping into the pit would lead to the real academy? Lynn. Professor X was so distraught that he didn't know what to say. He glanced at Storm and the others, and finally looked at Lynn and sighed deeply. Let's go into Oasis and extract the memory. After it's over, I want to sleep well. Chapter 32, Legitimacy. Another wonderful use of Oasis. Oasis world in an empty copy. Professor X, Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey stood quietly, recalling the scenes that happened that year. A streak of silvery white light emerged between the 5 people's eyebrows. Lynn faced them. Her hands were like plucking strings, and every time she moved and waved, a ray of light fell into the distant void. The buzzing sound is endless. Where the light of memory fell, the void changed quietly. First, the ground rolled, and then buildings rose from the ground, and then figures were outlined. Eric, Charles, as a member of Mutant, you are willing to be human lackeys? Zhao, the fate of Mutant should not be entrusted to war. Eric, Zhao's idea is wrong. Don't be fooled by him. No, Charles, you are too naive. I agreed with him from the very beginning. I killed him only because he killed my mother. It's like how a tiger can be with sheep. How can we mutants become human beings? Pray. Look, after adamantium casts bone claws, you will become a brand new Wolverine, the strongest weapon that Wilhelm Stryker, has created. After today, ordinary people all over the world will become mutants. Eric, you madman. The mutant transformed by your broken machine will die soon. First Class, Wolverine, X-Men 1, accompanied by dialogues and battles. One classic scene after another is reproduced. Then it was recorded by Alice. Of these, Wolverine's memory is the most troublesome. But with his active cooperation, Lynn perfectly combined the four-ring magic legitimacy with the virtual projection of the second world of Oasis, and it didn't take much effort to complete everything. Next, these real and classic scenes will be edited by Alice. In the end, a full version of the documentary was formed, also known as Mutants Past and Present. When this documentary is released, the X-Men will come to the stage completely. In the eyes of the world, it will no longer be a secret. When everything was over, Professor X looked at the scene that was clearly an illusion made of memory, but was extremely real, with a solemn expression and a confused heart. With his character, he would not have agreed with Lynn to do this. But Lynn's performance twice in a row is really against the sky. And he is old, whether he wants to or not. He has to admit that from the moment Lynn stepped into the principal's office, Mutant's future is no longer in his hands. The future belongs to Lynn. This young man's wisdom, ability, means vision. Any aspect is enough to become the well-deserved leader of Mutant. Even if I don't agree, I can't stop it. The general trend of the world is mighty and mighty. Those who follow it will prosper, and those who go against it will perish. At this moment, Professor X unconsciously thought of such an old saying. He's been reading books about Dragon Kingdom recently, and he has gained a lot. The more I study, the more I feel that the culture of the Dragon Kingdom is extensive and profound. Maybe let Lynn let go and do it, and I will be the principal quietly in the academy. Also very good, only by stepping onto the front stage can truly be regarded as the banner of Mutant, and can bring hope to other mutants. Lynn's voice rang in my ears. In the near future, the whole world will know the name of Xavier's school, but they can't find the location of school. Only the mutant recognized by us, are eligible to enter the school. Over time, when we open enrollment, batches of students will enroll, and batches of students will graduate. This place will become a holy place for mutants all over the world. And then it will also become a kingdom of mutants standing in the sky. Just like the Amazons in Paradise Island and Atlantis in the underwater world. Definitely, Lynn didn't say the last sentence. First, it is difficult to establish a country. It doesn't mean that gathering a large group of mutants can become a country. An orderly functioning country requires a large number of talents to manage. Otherwise, it will fall apart in minutes. And this is exactly what the mutant group lacks the most. Secondly, with Lynn's current strength, maintaining a magic circle of 3,000 meters in length and width is already the limit, and it is temporarily impossible to further expand the area of the academy to a level sufficient to establish a country. So this is a long-term plan. What to do now is another thing. Thoughts surged in her mind. Lynn stretched her waist and looked at Professor X. Professor, since we have entered the Oasis, why not take a stroll here? I just have a question, and I want to ask you for advice. As soon as these words came out, for some reason, Storm and the others secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Because it wasn't until at the moment that they saw the familiar student appearance on Lynn again. Tonight, the pressure on this student is too much. When Professor X heard this, curiosity appeared on his face. What's the problem? Professor, I know that you can create a spiritual connection with all the people in the world through the brain wave strengthening device. In that state, you can accurately distinguish between ordinary people and mutants. Lynn smiled slightly, full of curiosity. Can you tell me, what is the difference between the brain waves of mutant and ordinary people? I want to use this to improve my detection magic. Detect magic? Professor X trembled slightly, thinking of something. That's right. Lynn didn't hide anything and pointed to the copy space. The game equipment of Oasis, the bracelet, helmet, and game compartment are all engraved with detection magic, so as to distinguish whether the player entering the game is an ordinary person or a mutant. Can magic achieve such an effect? Professor X gasped again, reminiscent of what Lynn said before. He specially developed some mutant-specific copies, and another role in the world of Oasis is already coming out. Discover the mutants. Screen mutant. Train mutants. Chapter 33. Explain. What does it mean that something is missing? Xavier Manor is located outside the city of Twist, with a large area, and the surrounding area is also very empty. Apart from roads and forests, there are no other buildings. Even so, such a large area of ground was directly lifted into the air, and the movement was too great. It didn't take long for everything that should be known in the Twisted City to be known. Countless people woke up from their sleep, thinking that an earthquake had occurred. In the dark night, people from NYPD and many other departments rushed to the scene. Just before they reached their destination, a car had already appeared on the periphery of the giant pit. At the moment, the sky has become slightly brighter. Great Gift Crab, SHILD Level 8 Agent Phil Coulson, stepped on the brakes and was stunned when he saw the road suddenly disappearing in front of him. Where's the road? What about the mountains? Where's the lake? Isn't it Charles's manor, the X-Men base that the director said? Where did you go? How did this huge pit that is not dark in winter appear? Is the ground collapsing? With excellent psychological quality, Phil Coulson quickly woke up from the shock, and he called the director immediately. The phone was connected quickly. Nick Fury's puzzled voice came. Phil Coulson, I'll let you go to Xavier Manor to find Charles, and try to find out what his X-Men want to do, and there will be results so soon. No, boss, it just arrived. Phil Coulson took a deep breath and reported in a calm tone as much as possible. Actually, I haven't been to Xavier Manor yet, and I haven't seen Charles yet. There's a problem? Nick Fury wasn't even surprised. Anything abnormal is a demon. Today, oh no, it should be last night, the X-Men made a high-profile appearance, and their behavior style is completely different from the past. This is an obvious signal. Yes, something went wrong, and a big one. Phil Coulson organized the language. I don't think I'll be able to meet Charles because his Xavier estate, no, technically the 2 kilometers around the Xavier estate, all gone. Nick Fury on the other side of the phone didn't respond for a moment. What do you mean, missing? He hesitated before asking. You heard me right, boss. It's just gone. Phil Coulson operated his mobile phone while talking and soon sent a photo he took. There's no Xavier Manor, no X-Men, only a huge pit with a depth of 100 meters. It is difficult to see the whole picture of the giant pit in the photos taken at close range. So he thought for a while and added, if the Earth is a huge amount of watermelon, then what I see now, it seems that someone dug a big spoonful of watermelon at the place where the Xavier Manor is located. So you can understood, boss. Nick Fury fell into 3 minutes of silence. He seemed to be looking at his phone, and he seemed to be asking for news. Phil Coulson, you have such a FG sense of humor. The voice came again, but he couldn't help but swear. FK. I saw this huge crater through satellites. But can you tell me why such a large place disappeared without warning? Not without warning, sir. Phil Coulson didn't care about the boss's rage and reported faithfully. 10 minutes ago, I felt a strong tremor and thought it was an earthquake, so I stopped on the side of the road for a few minutes. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted roughly by Nick Fury. Are you trying to tell me that someone dug such a big hole in the earth, and it took a F-King just a few minutes? When he said this, the S.H.I.E.L.D. director was clearly extremely irritable. He definitely knows that the X-Men are all powerful, and Charles is one of the most powerful mutants in the world. The handwriting in front of me is too big. The most important thing is that, while he was talking, he had all the departments of SHILD running at full speed. However, the information sent back was that there was no other movement except the tremors that lasted for a few minutes in the twisting city. All the satellites that SHILD can control searched with all their strength and found no clues. It looks like a large piece of land has been dug away, just disappeared out of thin air. I think so, sir. Phil Coulson still responded honestly. Other than that, I can't think of any other possibilities. It seems that about the Xavier Academy, there's a powerful force that we don't know about. Nick Fury took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the emotions in his heart. The brain is running fast. This power is definitely related to X-Men. They just saved so many people at the Hammer Industries Expo, and a few hours later, the entire Xavier Academy disappeared. This is definitely not a coincidence. So, it's not that there is an external force that erased the entire Xavier Academy from the Earth, but that this force belongs to Xavier Academy. It made the entire Academy disappear from everyone's sight. What is this for? Thinking of this, Nick Fury felt his head start to ache. In the top secret information of SHILD, Professor X has always been far more threatening than Magneto. His spiritual ability is enough to erase the brain waves of countless human beings in an instant. He is an existence that is 100 times more terrifying than nuclear bombs. Such a powerful mutant leader who was originally friendly to humans suddenly hit his base camp. Does this mean that his attitude towards humans has changed? But looking at the performance of X-Men, it doesn't look like it. Anyway, this is not a good signal. Nick Fury deserves to be the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. After thinking for a while, he still couldn't come to a useful conclusion. He simply stopped thinking about it and gave orders to Phil Coulson. No matter what they want to do, there will definitely be a next step to increase the monitoring of the mutant incident. As long as the X-Men show up again, they will report as soon as possible. In addition, let the weapons department speed up the manufacture of anti-psychic helmets. Hearing this sentence, Phil Coulson's complexion changed slightly. Boss, he was about to speak when Nick Fury's deep voice reached his ears. Phil Coulson, we're getting ready for a war. Chapter 34, Make a Fortune and Make Another Fortune. A few days later, Lynn is back in the Second World headquarters again. He was in a pretty good mood because when he woke up this morning, what came to his mind was a 5-ring magic. Super dynamic visuals. Another powerful magic that can stabilize one's body. Now, the passive magic on his body is 7 rings steel body, 7 rings spiritual immunity, and 5 rings early warning, which have initially taken shape to become a fort mage. But in this world, there is no lack of ability with outrageous speed. It is necessary to keep a super dynamic vision magic. Moreover, this magic will continue to superimpose. In the next 3 months, it will be a constant once a day, at least to the level of the 7th ring. Lynn made a decision immediately. Entering the conference room, Shadowcat, Jubilation Lee, Iceman, Colossus, and Roberto have all arrived, including Phoenix. In addition, there is Lewis, the head of X Fund, and the financial team hired from Wall Street with high salaries. Boss, seeing Lynn, Lewis was the first to stand up and say hello. His tone and attitude were much more humble than before, because just last night, Professor X called him and officially dismissed him as the head of X Fund and appointed him as the Chief Operating Officer, COO, of the Second World Technology Company instead. The president and CEO of Second World are both Lynn, so his job as Chief Operating Officer is to assist Lynn and manage the company's daily operations. To be honest, Lewis was extremely puzzled by this. He and Mr. Xavier have been working together for many years, and they have been very happy with each other, and the operation of X Fund is also quite good. So he has no idea what Mr. Bizuier is thinking, as if this Second World is much more important than the Xavier family's fund. It's fine to invest a lot of money, but now you have to transfer yourself? The X Fund doesn't care anymore? When Lewis received the call, his first reaction was that he was fired. But when talking about the salary, Mr. Xavier offered him a price far higher than before. He was dumbfounded at the time. Then she faintly understood that this was her trust in him. It is precisely because of the foundation of many years of cooperation that this job will fall on him. It can be seen that Mr. Xavier Attaché's great importance to the second world far beyond his imagination. After figuring this out, he spent the night adjusting his mentality, and when he saw Lynn again, he had already entered the working state. After contacting for a while, he knew that Lynn didn't like nonsense, so he immediately looked at the person in charge of the financial team. "Let's start reporting." "Mr. Lynn," the person in charge nodded and reported excitedly. "According to your instructions, we invested $100 million in small shares in batches and made the largest double leverage, shorting the stock of Hammer Industries several times in a row. Since Justin Hammer was arrested, the stock of Hammer Industries has fallen off a cliff. During this period of time, the funds in all accounts have exceeded $500 million. The gains in the stock market did not surprise Lynn. Thousands of well-known spectators almost died at the gunpoint of the steel soldiers of Hammer Industry, and the impact was too great and bad. Even if it is found out afterwards that the manipulator behind the scenes is Ivan Vank, Hammer Industries cannot get away with it. Justin Hammer is about to face extremely serious charges. After all, his performance that night proved that he and Ivan Vank are in the same group, and the act of framing Wolverine under the eyes of everyone has ruined everyone's favor. The stock price plummeted. So normal. In such a situation, even if the other shareholders mobilize all their energies, it is impossible for the military leaders who have interests in them to come forward to help at the risk of the world. Even I don't know how many people wishing that Hammer Industries would be left alone. Those capitals who came here after smelling the smell showed their greedy fangs without any hesitation. All in all, Lynn earns only a drop in the bucket because of limited funds. After the report was completed, the person in charge concluded, according to the current situation, Hammer Industries' share in the arms market is being divided up rapidly. If there is no accident, there is a high probability that it will go bankrupt, so we continue to short. It doesn't make sense anymore. Hammer Industries will not go bankrupt. Lynn waved her hand, and under the puzzled eyes of everyone, she slowly said, after closing the position, 20% of the funds will be used for company expansion, and the rest will be used to buy the bottom of Hammer industrial stock. This time, we do more. As soon as these words came out, not only the people in the financial team were stunned. Lewis was also dumbfounded. Buying the bottom, his eyes flashed, and he quickly realized, "Boss, do you have any inside information? Is it possible that the military will end and keep Hammer Industries?" Lynn shook her head and stretched out 3 fingers. In 3 days, Stark Industries will announce to the public that it will start the process of acquiring Hammer Industries. He's not worried about leaks. These few members of the financial team will stay here for a period of time, and they will not be able to leave at all. External information and phone calls will also be monitored by Alice. No word ever gets out. As for Lewis, he is considered half of himself now. And if he wants to follow suit, he can naturally make a fortune. This is the chance for him. Lynn is very clear that only benefits can make people die. As the chief operating officer of the Second World, Lewis will earn 10 times or 100 times more money than before. At that time, even if he knows that he is working for Mutant, instead of feeling angry, he will become the vanguard of Mutant. Sure enough, when he heard Lynn's words, Lewis's eyes immediately lit up with joy. The Stark Group is going to acquire Hammer Industries? As soon as the news comes out, the stock price will definitely rise sharply. As he spoke, awe grew stronger in his heart. The methods of this young new boss are simply terrifying. First, he made a lot of money by shorting Hammer Industries. Now, when everyone is not optimistic about Hammer Industries, he is doing the opposite, planning to buy the bottom and make a fortune. In the stock market, the profits of long positions are much higher than those of short positions. At that time, the $400 million invested will at least be multiplied several times. This is not just knowing some inside information. You can do it. More like create conditions to make money in the stock market. What's hidden in it? Just thinking about it makes one's scalp tingle. No wonder the boss said that the funds he controlled were never $100 million, and such a large sum of money turned out to be only the startup capital of the Second World. Thinking back to what Lynn said when they first met, Lewis was secretly stunned, but he didn't understand that serving as the COO of the second world might be the greatest opportunity in his life. This thigh must be hugged tightly. Chapter 35 Talent Joins. Felicity and Sky. Lynn didn't talk nonsense and continued to assign work. Hammer falls, Oasis eats. With the amount of money obtained from the stock market in the next period of time, the capital situation of the second world is completely sufficient, and the expansion can be accelerated. So what we need to do now is to set up game distribution points in major cities around the world. In this way, it can be connected with Stark Industries production and transportation channels all over the world. As long as Oasis is officially released, players all over the world will be able to purchase game equipment immediately and feel the infinite charm of the second world. This is one of the most important preparatory work in the early stage. Although tedious, is not difficult. It's nothing more than spending money. Lynn believes that with Lewis's ability, it can be arranged as a whole. At the same time, he also arranged Iceman, Colossus, and Roberto in this team to increase experience and knowledge. It's the same sentence. Don't care about the cost. Speed is the key. Lynn emphasized this point again and waved his hand, letting Lewis take Iceman and others away. His gaze turned to Shadowcat Katie. The matter of Daily X is very simple. Shadowcat took out a stack of documents and said, "According to the plan, the company is registered in my name and has nothing to do with the second world. The app has already been developed and can be released at any time." As she spoke, she curled her lips. "Lynn, you've already arranged these things, which makes me feel very unfulfilled. Unlike world-renowned media companies such as Bugle Daily and Planet Daily, X Daily is positioned as a new media, focusing on short videos, and has never thought of entering the newspaper or TV market. The era of smartphones has arrived, and no one knows better than Lynn the terrifying influence of self-media, such as short videos. So this matter, as Shadowcat said, is not too difficult. All you need is an app. As for the app of X Daily, Lynn has already developed it with reference to TikTok, overseas version of a certain music for a previous life. The later operations can be handed over to Alice. What needs to be done now is to use the fastest speed to let the whole world know the existence of X Daily, accept, and use it. In response to this, Lynn also arranged the X-Men documentary as a hotspot. No wonder Shadowcat will feel that he is a tool man. Stop complaining. Your task is heavy. Lynn smiled and looked at the two daughters Shadowcat and Jubilation Lee. From now on, your positions will be officially confirmed. Kian Huan, as the technical director of the second world, will upgrade Alice at the same time, and Katie Poo Ms. Ryder. Congratulations on becoming the chief reporter of X Daily. Shadowcat ability is through objects not suitable for combat, but it is very difficult for others to hurt her. Over the years, with Lynn's help, she has developed her own abilities to a very powerful level, no less than Storm and other X-Men. There is no one more suitable as a reporter for X Daily than her. Clear. Shadowcat stopped joking and nodded. From now on, the Mutant channel will be handed over to me. This was planned long ago, and she had always been mentally prepared. It was Jubilation Lee who said a little unconfidently, "Lynn, the technical department is the core department of the second world. I'm afraid I'm alone." After all, she had just stepped out of school, and she suddenly had a heavy responsibility on her shoulders, so she inevitably felt uneasy. Seeing this, Shadowcat took her hand and encouraged him. "Be confident in yourself, Kian Huan. Looking around the world, in terms of artificial intelligence, you are second only to Tony Stark. Katie's right, you can do it." Lynn nodded, with a look of mystery on his face. "Definitely, it's too hard for you two. I found an assistant for each of you." Assistant. Jubilation Lee and Shadowcat looked at each other in surprise. "Guaranteed to satisfy you." Lynn took out her mobile phone and put it on the table. "Alice, connect to the video call." "Got it, boss." Following Alice's response, two rays of light flickered, opening two holographic projection screens. It turned out to be two women. One of them is a typical Western beauty, with blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, and beautiful appearance. She wears red lips and a pair of glasses, giving people a kind of intellectual and wild beauty. Felicity, CMO, an IT genius I recruited from the Star City Quinn Group. Lynn introduced, and then looked at another mixed-race woman with Oriental beauty, Sky, the world's top hacker, one of my friends on the dark web. Sky showed off her figure in a black leather jacket. "Hey, Lynn." The two greeted each other at the same time. Shadowcat and Jubilation, Lee felt keenly that the two women were no strangers to Lynn, and they didn't look like they had been in contact for a while, but they felt like old friends. Do not. There seems to be some ambiguity between the eye contact. But hasn't Lynn been in the academy all these years? How do you know people outside the academy? The two women looked at each other, with a trace of vigilance in their hearts at the same time, but they still greeted enthusiastically on the surface. Felicity, Sky, welcome to the second world. Felicity and Sky have just arrived at the appointment, and after they settle down, they will come to the company to report. Lynn explained, looking at Jubilation Lee. Felicity graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and her computer skills are quite good. With her as your assistant, your work will definitely be much easier. Then there is Shadowcat. Sky is your assistant. After the Mutant documentary is released, she will use hacking methods to spread the edited short video all over the world and attract traffic to Daily X. There is no doubt that Felicity and Sky are the top computer talents in the world. In the movie plot, the former is the technical consultant of the Green Arrow team. The latter, the future Vibe Girl, would eventually become the inhuman descendant of S.H.I.E.L.D. director. Lynn has planned for many years. How could she let go of this kind of help? Over the years, the three of them have had countless exchanges on the dark web. It can even be said that Felicity and Sky have today's hacking skills, and Lynn has contributed a lot. For the two daughters, he can be regarded as a mentor who is also a teacher and a friend. It's just that among the two girls, Felicity is not a mutant, and Sky has not yet touched the obelisk and obtained super ability. Lynn has never recruited them. Not long ago, when he was about to have a showdown with Professor X and really start planning, he finally found the two girls and invited them to join the second world. As for the method of invitation, without him, they just slept separately. With the in-depth exchanges, let's talk about cooperation. Everything is logical. Chapter 36, Sweeping the Internet. It turns out that the X-Men have done so much for humans. The next day, a video suddenly went viral on the internet. In the video, Wolverine, who has been in the limelight recently, is tied to a laboratory table, pierced into the body of the instrument, as if the mercury-like liquid is flowing and pouring into his body quickly. Wolverine twisted all over and let out a terrible wail. And behind him stood a middle-aged man in military uniform. His face was full of excitement and excitement. His expression was crazy and distorted, hideous like a ghost. The screen flashed, and the symbol of the beautiful country appeared, the Statue of Liberty. At the top of the goddess statue, a sci-fi instrument is spinning crazily, and the milky white light is spreading crazily towards the surroundings. On the small island not far away, there are dense figures gathered from various countries, and it seems to be the scene of an international conference. The milky white light was like a wave, and it was about to swallow the island. Still Wolverine, he stretched out his bone claws and tried his best to prevent an old man from continuing to operate the machine, but the old man seemed to be able to control his bone claws. No matter how hard he tried, the claws were not worth an inch. At the critical moment, Cyclops, Phoenix, and Storm appeared on the screen. Seeing Cyclops aiming for a long time, a red light shot out suddenly and hit the old man's back. Wolverine's claws that had been waiting for a long time stabbed and slashed out, tearing up the instrument on the spot and scattering it in all directions. The milky white wave that was about to swallow the island disappeared immediately. Senior officials from all over the world looked at each other with joyful expressions on their faces. What is this video? A new movie coming out? It's not a movie. Isn't that strong man with claws the same as the mutant who gave his life to save people at the Hammer Industry Fair? Yes, the other three too, I saw in the live broadcast. Then what's the situation? This video only lasted for 1 minute, but it aroused the curiosity of countless netizens. Before they had any doubts, the video automatically gave the answer. X-Men documentary, Mutants Past and Present X Daily exclusive report. Please download Daily X. At some point, all the netizens who saw the video reacted, quickly turned on their phones, and soon found the X Daily app, which was a simple X icon. Open it and see that everyone can post videos and share every bit of life. Such a novel software immediately aroused the interest of many people. But now is clearly not the time for research. In the X Daily, there is currently only one mutant channel, and when you click on it, there is only one half-hour-long video. A female reporter with a sweet smile spoke slowly. Recently, what happened at the site of the Hammer Industry Expo triggered a discussion that swept the entire network. After in-depth investigation by our reporter, it was a superhero group composed of mutants called X-Men who came to save people that night. It is dedicated to combating mutant crimes and protecting the safety of the public. In order to let the general public have a deeper understanding of X-Men, this newspaper exclusively produced the X-Men documentary. Please watch it. Without further ado, the feature film begins. To the audience's surprise, it was not any of the four Wolverine who appeared first, but a well-mannered young man. Looking at the background building, it seems to be in the 1960s. And as soon as this person appeared, he showed the powerful ability of mind control, but he did not use his super ability to do any bad things, but cooperated with the CIA. He even became lovers with a female agent of the CIA. More MacTag. This surprised all the audience. As early as the 1960s, the government actually cooperated with Mutant. This Charles is the creator of X-Men. X-Men turned out to be an official organization. After the shock, the audience soon discovered that the purpose of this organization was to deal with the Hellfire Club headed by Sebastian Shaw. This evil mutant organization actually led the Bagoom Missile Crisis and wanted to trigger a world war. Just a little bit, and they made it. The whole world will be involved in the flames of war and become victims of the war. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the original X-Men stopped them and saved the world. Just in the process, Charles's friend, Eric, nicknamed Magneto, was influenced by the idea of Hellfire Club, turned his back on his friend, and created the Mutant Brotherhood, intending to destroy human beings and let mutants rule the world. The original X-Men also split, with several members switching to Magneto. Charles is miserable. The audience who were unknowingly substituted into the plot could not help but feel sympathy for Professor X. Next, in order to protect the world, the X-Men fought against the Mutant Brotherhood several times, and the number of personnel became less and less. In desperation, Professor X could only find a way to recruit new members. Storm, Cyclops, Phoenix are added in this process. However, when the X-Men fought desperately for humanity, but he was backstabbed by the human government, military Colonel Wilhelm Stryker launched the Inhuman X-Weapon program and conducted various experiments on mutant to annihilate human figures. What surprised all audiences was that many of those experimental subjects were actually soldiers who served the country. Wolverine Logan is a member of some special forces. My God, this Wilhelm Stryker is not human. These are heroes who fought for the country. Just because they're mutants, are they going to be subjected to such inhumane experiments? What does the military want to do with this Weapon X program? Among the experimental subjects, there are actually many ordinary people, Deadpool, etc. They're trying to make an artificial mutant. Great gift crab. This Wilhelm Stryker should go to hell. Through Wolverine's memories, the audience learned about the military's X-Weapon program and also saw the brutal human experiments in the base. At this time, anyone with a little conscience feels that the military is devoid of humanity. Everyone can't wait to cross the screen and beat Wilhelm Stryker to death. The audience breathed a sigh of relief as Wolverine rescued the imprisoned mutant and teamed up with Victor to defeat Deadpool. What makes them feel extremely sad is that Wolverine has suffered such inhumane torture, but she still maintains a kind heart. After meeting Professor X and formally joining X-Men, he did not turn his back on human beings, but stood up bravely to face Magneto. Even Magneto's super ability can restrain him naturally. Next, there's the content in the trailer, Magneto wants to use machines to transform humans all over the world into mutants, and that transformation seems to be successful, but it will actually kill people. The X-Men gather to fight the Mutant Brotherhood on the Statue of Liberty. Save the world again. After watching the entire documentary, countless viewers fell silent. It turns out that mutants are not all freaks and villains, but there are also superheroes like X-Men. It turns out that in a corner we don't know, the X-Men have done so much for human beings. It turns out that the sinister human heart is more terrifying than the super ability of the mutant. Turn out to be, we've been misunderstanding the mutant group. As the documentary spread like a virus, everyone suddenly discovered that the official Fong-Yin had kept so many inside information about mutant. A different kind of emotion quietly permeated the world, although just a trickle for the time being. But as time goes by, these emotions gradually magnify and converge, and sooner or later they will form a huge wave, which will turn the current mainstream public opinion upside down. Like bombs, they exploded in countless places around the world. The impact of this documentary has scared countless people. Chapter 37, Magneto. Is my reputation rotten? In an unknown land, in a prison made entirely of plastic. Magneto has been here for quite some time, but he was in no hurry. The jailers who guarded him were very strange. Why was a mutant careerist who wanted to destroy mankind, after being reduced to a prisoner, still so calm and calm, as if he was on vacation? The answer to this question has not been revealed until today. Whoosh whoosh, the three iron balls whistled back and forth under the control of Magneto, as if tens of thousands of bullets were fired at the same time, and the vulnerable plastic prison soon became ruins. With incomparable astonishment and unwillingness, the jailers turned into corpses. They died so fast that they didn't even react. All people who enter and leave this place will be strictly inspected, and it is impossible to pass if the iron content in the body exceeds the standard. Where did Magneto get the iron ball? Humans are a bunch of idiots. I haven't figured it out for such a long time. The reason why I was trapped here was never because I was caught, but because I lost to Charles. Magneto's eyes were indifferent, and the blood did not bring any fluctuations to his mind. Walking out of the prison, a blue figure appeared in front of him. Raven. A long-lost smile appeared on Magneto's face. From the moment I sensed that the iron element in the jailer's blood exceeded the standard, I knew it was you who came. Eric, sorry to interrupt your vacation. Mystique was a little excited, but quickly hid it. I originally planned to rescue you after I was fully prepared, but recently the outside world has changed too fast, and we need your wisdom. Magneto was slightly taken aback. The rescue plan was launched earlier? Yes, Mystique nodded, took out a mobile phone, and handed it over. Look at this. Magneto took it. What is playing on the phone is the X-Men documentary, in addition to some news collected by Mystique. After a long time. Charles. Magneto's eyes were full of shock and surprise, and he didn't speak for a while. Mystique understood what he meant and spoke out for him. Charles is not the same as before, yes. Although it has been a long time since he had contact with the outside world, through this video and a few news reports, Magneto was keenly aware of the strangeness. If it was Charles before, he would never do such a thing. Take the initiative to expose X-Men and make it into a documentary? The most important thing is this X-Daily. Even the name is so high profile. This is to take the initiative to stand under the sun and let people all over the world know his existence. What does he want to do? Magneto never imagined that he had only lived in the prison for a while, and the wind and clouds outside were already turbulent, and the wind and rain were about to come. He frowned and asked, "This video spread quickly?" "Soon." Mystique nodded. Right now, almost everyone knows the names of Professor X and X-Men, definitely, including our Mutant Brotherhood. Speaking of this, she had a strange look in her eyes. Eric, you are now a world-renowned villain, and many people even want to let the authorities conduct a public trial on you. Magneto's old face was gloomy. My reputation completely ruined? Although he didn't care about it. He was unavoidably upset when he heard such news just after he was released from prison. At the same time, he was even more inconceivable. How could those arrogant and stupid politicians let this go? Didn't they think of blocking the video and blocking the Daily X? I've tried a long time ago, but I can't do it. The weird look on Mystique's face became more and more intense. X Daily's app seems to contain a virus, and the major platforms can't take it off the shelves at all. And once downloaded, it can't be uninstalled. Magneto understood instantly. The power of technology, he muttered to himself, and found that Charles was more and more different from his own impression. He has mastered a technological power beyond the times, so he is so unscrupulous. Yes, because of this, the video cannot be blocked at all. Mystique continued. Now, the officials of various countries are having a headache because more and more people are affected and begin to change their attitudes towards mutant. Magneto gasped. He finally understood. Charles deviate from his philosophy. When this guess came out of his mind, he felt his scalp tingling. He is still working hard for mutants' future, but the direction and means are completely different from before. If anything, Mystique was just shocked and amazed by it. He is filled with an indescribable fear and anger. Because after so many years, he's been fighting and working with Charles for so many years, have never changed each other's thoughts and ideas. But now Charles has changed. In this world, no one knows Professor X better than Magneto. He is very clear that Professor X has insisted on his way for so many years, and it has already been integrated into his bones. It is absolutely impossible for him to change suddenly and want to try another way. So there's only one possibility for this transformation. Someone else influenced him. Eric, we hadn't thought of this approach before, but it turns out that Charles does it very well. Mystique sighed deeply. During this time, not only the direction of the mutant is changing, but even among the mutant group, there are not a few people who are affected. As soon as these words came out, Magneto's head buzzed. Mutant Brotherhood, what happened? His face suddenly became more ugly. Mystique said cautiously. Many people have been shaken, and they want to join Charles. Boom, boom. The two small iron balls that had been controlled by Magneto suddenly exploded. What? He let out a strange laugh, his eyes full of sarcasm. Those guys who follow the wind, do they think that X-Men has a better future? Just because of this video, the direction of humans' attitude towards mutant has changed a little bit. Mystique has a deep understanding of this. Eric, you have been away for too long. Yeah, I've been gone too long. Magneto nodded. Although during this period of time, I have not been wasted, but have been reflecting on the last failure and thinking about the future of the mutant group. But after all, it has been a long time since I appeared in the public eye. Accompanied by these words, his eyes suddenly became extremely sharp, and a powerful aura of looking at the sky emerged from his thin body. Go check. He glanced at Mystique and ordered unquestionably. I want to know, who is it that can have such a big influence on Charles? Mystique nodded, just about to respond. Suddenly, there was a soft response in my ear. Mr. Lyncher, Ms. Darkholme, there is no need for you to waste this time. I've been waiting here for a long time. Chapter 38 now. Can we talk properly? The disillusionment curse was lifted, and Lynn's figure appeared in sight. The pupils in the eyes of Magneto and Mystique shrank to the extreme in an instant. The two of us have been talking here for so long, and someone has been peeping secretly. Who are you? Mystique screamed in surprise, swiped her hands behind her back, pulled out two pistols from nowhere, pointed at where Lynn was, and pulled the trigger without any hesitation. Compared with the X-Men, she is obviously much more decisive. In the face of uninvited guests, the shot is fatal. Bang, 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 the two guns trembled, and the bullets roared out. But to her horror, all the bullets stopped half a meter in front of Lynn. It's as if there's an invisible wall of air. Get it all stuck. Freeing magic air shield. Ms. Darkholme, don't be so nervous. Lynn waved his hand, and a dozen bullets whoosh and whoosh turned back. The speed was 10 times faster than before, and they all passed Mystique's head. Before Mystique could react, the ground under her feet suddenly shook violently. A stream of soil spewed out, turning into 5 circular shackles in the air, locking her hands, feet, and slender waist. Soil modeling magic, 3 rings, and soil lock. With a flick of her fingers, Lynn locked the shackles on Mystique's hands and flinched suddenly. Severe pain came, and the two pistols fell immediately. "Eric!" Mystique screamed. Magneto hadn't thought of making a move at first, but seeing this scene, his eyes suddenly froze. The plastic prison is located deep underground where he definitely cannot exert any strength. But at the moment, he has come out of the underground prison and has come to the part above the ground. Here, metal is everywhere. Chi-chi-chi-chi-chi dash, accompanied by the sound of howling through the air one after another. The guns on the guards who had been dealt with by Mystique all flew up, but they did not shoot at Lynn, but melted and stretched in the air, turning into sharp metal needles. Dozens of metal needles shot at Lynn like a storm. Lynn's eyes flickered slightly. Facing Magneto, he did not defend as before, but chose to attack and attack. He flicked his fingers repeatedly, beams of light shot out, and the oncoming metal needles exploded with a bang and bang. 4 rings crushing curse. What mutant are you? Magneto had a weird look on his face. In a short 10 seconds since Lynn appeared, he had already shown 3 completely different abilities, which made him feel extremely weird. But after asking, the movements of his hands did not stop at all. More metal was manipulated into needles, which were shot out in waves, like raging waves cascading. Lynn shook his head, raised his right wrist lightly, and the ground under his feet suddenly lifted, and the mud and rocks tumbling, gathered into a Titan more than 3 meters high, lifting him into the air. Titan flapped his palms, like swatting a fly, and the metal needles that struck in front of him were sent flying with a bang and bang. Humph! Magneto frowned slightly, as if he didn't expect Lynn to be so difficult to deal with, and the summoned stone Titan had amazing defense. The metal needle he manipulated failed to break through the defense. He snorted coldly, and the whole building vibrated immediately. All visible metal. Even the steel bars in the walls were pulled out, like thousands of rivers returning to the sea, gathering into a huge amounts of metal cluster. The next moment, the metal group suddenly split and turned into metal spears, stinging towards the stone Titan at Lynn's feet. The air is torn apart, making a piercing, whistling sound. Aggressive. The power of these metal spears is far beyond the comparison of the metal needles just now. In just an instant, more than a dozen holes appeared on the stone Titan. However, there was no joy on Magneto's face. In a line of sight, Lynn curled her lips in dissatisfaction. Daunting Magneto, the development of his own abilities is so rough. That's all. That's all. Accompanied by his voice, a raging flame suddenly appeared on the stone Titan under his feet. In an instant, he changed from earth to fire and became a fireman. The 4th ring, shape-shifting technique, was used last second. In this second, it became 5 rings summoned Balrog. Roar! The Balrog roared and roared, and the flames burning on his body were completely different from ordinary flames, presenting a dark purple color. I saw his arms waving, and flames shot out like ropes, and the dozens of metal spears that pierced the stone Titan were actually rolled back from behind. A dark purple flame adhered to it, and within a few seconds, all the metal spears turned into molten iron. Magneto gasped. He was shocked by the terrible flame temperature. In a blink of an eye, his ability has been brought to the extreme, and the entire building collapsed. And all the steel bars, iron sheets, and metal products were pulled out by him and merged into the metal mass in front of him. But just when he shot again, the ground exploded with a boom, and a blue pillar of fire spewed out like a volcanic eruption. In just an instant, the metal ball was burnt red. Magneto's mind trembled, and he quickly manipulated the metal ball to avoid the flames. But at the moment, the air rippled slightly, and a violent and deep sound wave pierced his ears like a magic sound, drilling into his brain. He only felt severe pain in both ears, and the originally condensed spirit was instantly dispersed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lynn snapped her fingers with her right hand, and thick vines with green branches and red leaves rose from the ground, entangled Magneto's hands and feet. The vines grew at an unimaginable speed, and when they touched the collapsed floor above their heads, they spread out automatically, forming an incomparably huge hood, supporting the rapidly collapsing building due to the pulling out of the steel bars. Mystique, who was under control, saw this scene. His eyes were straight. From her point of view, the thick vine has become the only pillar in this space, and within this pillar, Magneto's body presents a large character, with a face full of horror and humiliation. The red leaf seemed to be on fire, and the position where it touched his body felt a burst of pain like a needle PK. Every time he wanted to concentrate on manipulating the metal, he would be interrupted by this sharp pain. He could only watch helplessly as the Balrog slowly collapsed under Lynn's feet, turning into flames and filling the entire space again. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be distorted into a dark purple nothingness. Lynn stepped on the flames and walked slowly in front of Magneto with a faint smile on her face. Now, can we talk properly? Chapter 39, Xavier's School Needs Talents Like You. Mystique's heart suddenly sank to the bottom, and Magneto stared at Lynn. The disbelief in his eyes was so intense that he could hardly melt away. Losing his control, the metal cluster was scorched by the blue flames and quickly turned into magma. However, in the high-temperature flames that fused iron into gold, the vines that trapped him were not damaged at all. This is outrageous. And that weird sound wave, it's all-pervasive and hard to guard against. Before that, Magneto was extremely confident in his own strength, except for Professor X, who could instantly control him without the anti-psychic helmet. He didn't look down on anyone else in this world. Until now, facing Lynn, he suddenly realized that this young man was different from all the mutants he had encountered before. I've never seen so many mutants from ability. What's your name? After a long time, Magneto felt the bound vines loosen a little, and the pain eased, and finally said, "Listen to what you just said. Are you the one who influenced Charles? After all, it is the leader of the Hawk faction mutant. Under this situation, the momentum is still undiminished. My name is Lynn, a student at Xavier's School." While introducing herself, Lynn was quite satisfied with her performance in the previous battle. Facts have proved that his choice on the path of magic was not wrong. In this world where superheroes walk everywhere, the comprehensiveness of ability is more important than specialization. Magneto is undoubtedly one of the most powerful mutants in the world. The ability to manipulate metal is extremely powerful. In the future, it may evolve into manipulating magnetic fields. But in the face of endless magic, it can't play well at all. Lynn didn't even cast much powerful magic, except for the Blaze Demon and Sun Vine of the summoning system, which are 5-ring magic. The others only have 3 or 4 rings. That phonological magic, infrasound vibe, even only has the 2nd ring. However, it is this 2nd ring magic that makes Magneto's magic sound permeate his ears, making him unable to concentrate, so that the use of his super ability is greatly reduced. This is also the defect of the mutant group. They may have various super abilities, but most of them are relatively single, and they may be targeted. But Lynn is different. The comprehensiveness of magic makes him have no shortcomings in all aspects. Naturally, there is no weakness. Student, Magneto had an expression of, "You're FG kidding me. Your strength far surpasses those X-Men. What can they teach you?" Before he finished speaking, he found that Lynn's expression didn't change at all. He immediately understood. "Are you really a student of Xavier College?" Replacement as fake. Lynn nods. Magneto's eyes changed again and again. "So, Charles's way of doing things is completely different from before. In fact, he was influenced by you as student? Are you going to tell me that the X-Men are listening to you now?" "In a way, that's true." Lynn's answer made Mystique's heart tremble. "Are the X-Men all here too?" His own plan to rescue Magneto has long been noticed by the X-Men, so just sit here and wait. Magneto obviously thought of this too, and his expression suddenly became complicated. "Charles is here too?" "No." Lynn shook her head and glanced at Mystique. "Actually, the professor didn't know that someone would come to rescue you. The reason I'm here is because I noticed Ms. Darkholme hacking into the prison network. That's all." Mystique was startled and angry. Magneto grasped the point of this sentence keenly. You are monitoring here? To be more precise, spying on you, Mr. Lyncher. Lynn doesn't hold back either. She's telling the truth. Ever since the artificial intelligence Alice was developed, the first thing he did was to hack into the official network, find out the location of the prison where Magneto was held, and have been secretly monitoring it. For this moment, Magneto's scalp tingled, but at the same time, he felt slightly relieved. If what you said is true, then, judging from what you and Charles are doing now, you are not cooperating with humans. That is to say, they didn't wait for me to break out and then send me to jail, did they? Definitely. Lynn smiled. I just want to talk to you. Magneto glanced at the vines tied to his body and sneered. Is this how you talk to people? I didn't mean to. Lynn shrugged, without any intention of taking back the magic. But now, it seems that this is the only way you can listen to me, quietly? As soon as these words came out, both Magneto and Mystique were speechless. After the silence, Magneto took a deep breath. Just tell me, what do you want to do? Lynn didn't talk nonsense and got straight to the point. Ms. Darkholme has already told you about the changes outside. He glanced at Mystique and said, but there is one thing Ms. Darkholme probably doesn't know yet. Xavier College is preparing to open enrollment in the near future. At that time, mutant students from all over the world will gather together, which will inevitably require a large number of teaching staff. So, I would like to ask you, the famous Mr. Magneto, to be the vice principal of the academy. By the way, we also invite Ms. Darkholme, as well as other elites from the Mutant Brotherhood, to serve as visiting professors at the academy. Mutants don't lie to mutants. Xavier's school needs talents like you. Chapter 40 Magneto with a burst mentality. Quiet. As soon as Lynn finished speaking, the blazing flame space suddenly fell into a strange silence. Both Magneto and Mystique looked dumbfounded. He even thought he was hallucinating. Magneto stared blankly at Lynn, and it took him a long time to react. He sneered and said, "Asked me to be the vice principal of Xavier College? Are you kidding me?" No wonder he didn't believe it. It's because Lynn's words are so ridiculous. Who is he? Magneto, leader of the Mutant Brotherhood. Fight against the X-Men's enemies for decades. How could it be possible to go to Xavier Academy, that mutant kindergarten that he didn't like at all, to be the vice principal? Are you afraid you are dreaming? Mystique stared at Lynn like she was looking at a fool, and the trace of fear she felt just now because of Lynn's powerful strength disappeared without a trace in an instant. She couldn't think of any other explanation for such an invitation, except that she was out of her mind. It's a joke in the world. I know you don't believe it, but what's so ridiculous about it? Lynn smiled, not surprised by the reaction of the two. He looked at Magneto, his eyes full of sincerity. Xavier College needs high-quality professors, and you are one of the top mutants in the world, and the Mutant Brotherhood under your command are also elites, so I hire you. What's wrong with you? Can. Every word and sentence, resoundingly. How can there be a little bit of joking? Are you serious? Magneto's expression finally changed from sneering to astonishment, then a little dignified. As the leader of the Mutant Brotherhood, he is undoubtedly one of the most intelligent and capable mutants in the world, but at this moment, he finds that he can't understand Lynn's brain circuit at all. He even felt that he was old. Are the young people of today so fierce? Reminiscent of the news brought by Mystique, he is not surprised that Xavier College is going to open enrollment. After all, what the X-Men have done during this period of time has made it clear that they do not intend to hide anymore. But even so, he still couldn't help asking. The open enrollment you're talking about is the kind that discloses your existence to the world, so that all mutants of the right age can enter the school openly? That's right. Lynn nodded slightly. Magneto stared straight at him. You asked me to be the vice principal. That is to say, the principal is still Charles. The other X-Men are still professors of the academy. It's natural, Lynn answered decisively. There is a sneer at the corner of Magneto's mouth. Don't you know the grievances between me and Charles? Mutant Brotherhood and X-Men? So what? Lynn didn't care about this. I invite you just to teach students, not to resolve grievances. As soon as these words came out, the pupils in Magneto's eyes shrank suddenly. An unbelievable idea emerged from his mind. You just want us to check and balance the X-Men? Are you worried that Charles will dominate the Academy? You want to share his power? He thought he had guessed Lynn's plot, but after being shocked, he couldn't help admiring Lynn's means and courage. But I didn't expect. Lynn frowned upon hearing this and looked at him speechlessly. As the leader of the Mutant Brotherhood, can the situation be bigger? Aren't you committed to changing the situation of Mutant? Why are you full of messy conspiracies? When speaking, Lynn couldn't hide her disappointment. Mutants are in danger of extinction at any time. To reverse the situation, we must unite all forces that can be united, especially the Mutant Brotherhood and X-Men, as the only ones in the mutant group. Elites should cooperate sincerely. You don't even understand such a simple truth? No wonder I wasted half my life and achieved nothing. Magneto never dreamed that one day he would be taught by Professor X's students. Every word is like a needle. The needle hits the nail on the head. It directly negates all his efforts in the first half of his life. The mentality exploded on the spot. I did fail in the first half of my life, but you think you will succeed? He was ashamed and annoyed and stared straight at Lynn. I don't deny that your methods are a bit unexpected, but you don't really think that you can make humans forget the threat of mutants by turning the tide of public opinion against mutants a little bit? Believe it or not, Xavier Academy is open for enrollment today, and tomorrow, the human army will enter the manor. This sentence is resolute and decisive. Facing his mocking eyes, Lynn smiled slightly. You may not know that Xavier Manor has changed its location, and the human army can't find it if they want to rush in, and when it reappears, it will be a giant that no one can shake. Due to the limitation of information, Magneto obviously couldn't understand the meaning of this sentence. He could only sneer back. In this case, why do you still ask me to be the vice principal? It's very simple, Lynn said lightly. Although Charles is a respectable elder, he is not an excellent principal. His educational philosophy is too gentle, and he can only cultivate elites instead of warriors. In this regard, Mr. Magneto, you obviously more authoritative. And Xavier's school needs both elites and warriors. As we all know, Hogwarts, where only Dumbledore is the headmaster, has no future. It also needs a Grindelwald. In a way, Magneto and Professor X are the Dumbledore and Grindelwald of this world, fighting each other to no avail for the mutant group. But if their ideas can blend and collide in Xavier's school, the growth rate of the students will be predictable. Lynn is very clear that the students of Xavier's school must not be taught to be a group of sheep, nor can they be taught to be a group of war madmen. The combination of the two, with both kindness and thunderous means, is the talent that the mutant group really needs. Then on this basis, learn all kinds of knowledge and improve various skills to survive in human society. For this, Lynn has even found out. The third principle, Chapter 41 Mutants, Real Wealth. Xavier's school need both elites and warriors? Magneto was taken aback. Lynn's frank treatment made him suddenly wake up. Perhaps there was no conspiracy against Charles. There are no ulterior tricks either. Lynn's presence here simply invites them to contribute to the future of Xavier's school and the future of Mutant. That's all. Thinking of this, Magneto's mentality quietly returned to calm. The young man in front of him is obviously also committed to saving the future of the mutant group, but his ideas and methods are different from himself and Charles. He somehow convinced Charles. Now, it seems that you still want to convince yourself? You wanted to join your plan? As expected of Magneto, when he really calmed down, he immediately showed a vicious and precise vision. Relief finally flashed across Lynn's eyes. This is in line with the image of Magneto in his mind. The one just now was nothing more than a stupid old man who has been imprisoned for too long and lost touch with the outside world. He looked at Magneto with burning eyes and emphasized again, Xavier's school needs talents like you. While speaking, he waved his left hand lightly, and the magic flames filling the space, the earth locks that trapped Mystique, and the sun vines that bound Magneto, all disappeared without a trace. Rumble. Without the support of the vine umbrella, the building continued to collapse. Countless stones and broken wood fell on their heads. But when they fell on top of the three people, They suddenly turned into flowing water, like thousands of raindrops pouring down. Magneto and Mystique trembled again and subconsciously raised their arms to resist the rainstorm, only to find that there was no rain on their bodies. All the rain seems to deliberately avoid the location of the three of them. This scene is undoubtedly very visually impactful. Eric, Mystique couldn't help but look at Magneto, only to find that he had followed the leader for decades. After getting rid of the shackles, for some reason, he didn't have any intention of fighting back or fleeing. The old man just looked straight at Lynn. Are you not going to use force? I never thought of using strength to force. Just like when you were against the X-Men, you never made a dead hand. Lynn smiled. Although she was young, she had an air of arrogance. Because you and I know very well that unless there is enmity between mutants, there is really no need to fight to the death. These words were said from the mouth of a young man, which seemed extremely inconsistent with his age. However, Magneto and Mystique did not feel any disobedience after hearing this. The latter was inexplicably in a trance. She actually saw an aura in Lynn, the temperament of a leader. She has seen this kind of temperament in Charles, and she has also seen it in Magneto. In comparison, Magneto has a stronger leadership quality. But at the moment, compared with the young man in front of him, it seems a little insignificant. You want Xavier's school to open its enrollment and appear in front of the world openly. And then what? From the meeting until now, Mystique, who has no nonsense except hands-on, suddenly interjected. Do you want to cultivate more X-Men, use the method of fighting mutant crimes to please humans in exchange for peace? Or do you plan to rely on the Academy? Cultivate an elite mutant army and finally go to war with humans. Magneto was slightly taken aback. Immediately afterwards, the expression became complicated. Like-minded for decades, no one knows Mystique's character better than him. In order to change the situation of Mutant, this woman would not hesitate to pay any price and take any means. She was a rare, ruthless person in the mutant group. Speaking suddenly at this moment undoubtedly means she's a little moved. Perhaps it was the strength that Lynn showed that was so powerful that she was impressed. Or it might be that during this period, Lynn's achievements seemed to be more effective than their past decades of efforts. Anyway, this woman is already thinking about Lynn's offer. Yes, young man, I would like to know too. Magneto sighed in his heart, but didn't say much, but looked at Lynn the same way. Even if you let the whole world recognize the existence of Xavier's school, so what? It's just a school after all. You're wrong, Mr. Magneto. Lynn's tone suddenly rose. Her eyes were lightning, deep and firm. Actually, neither you nor Charles realized the value of Xavier's school because you made a fatal mistake from the very beginning. Because of this mistake, the X-Men and the Mutant Brothers will never make it. This sentence is extremely confident. So much so that Magneto and Mystique's attention was firmly attracted. What's wrong? The greatest wealth of mutant has never been super ability. Lynn talked eloquently and expressed a completely different point of view from all mutants. Charles cultivated X-Men, and the members are all alpha-level and beta-level mutants, and the mutant brotherhood under your command is not too many at most. Just some gamma-level mutants. Maybe you don't even realize it. In fact, you have been measuring the strengths and weaknesses of mutants by the strength of super ability. But you have overlooked that alpha-level, beta-level, and gamma-level mutants have always been a minority. The number of mutant groups is not large, and you have been relying on a very small number of them. How can you compete with a huge number of humans? How can you reverse the situation of mutant? Same situation as the last time I faced Professor X. Magneto was also stunned when he heard this. This is an angle he never thought of. But now from Lynn's mouth, it seems not unreasonable. What do you mean? When Magneto was in a daze, Mystique couldn't wait to ask. It means that the Delta class, which has the largest number of people in the mutant group and accounts for 50% of the population, is the real backbone of the mutants. Lynn's words were sonorous and thunderous. The super abilities of Delta-level mutants are very weak, and they are not suitable for fighting, but their physical fitness is far superior to that of ordinary people. Among them, Many people's awakening abilities are brains that are more developed than ordinary people. Hi, leaving aside the identity of a mutant, do you know what such a person is in human society? Elite. These two words, like two bombs, exploded in the hearts of Magneto and Mystique. And human society has been an elite society since ancient times. The elites control power, control wealth, control resources, control public opinion, control everything. So, if Mutant wants to completely reverse the situation of survival and exert the power of Delta-level Mutant, is far more useful than setting up an X-Men or Mutant Brotherhood to please humans or go to war with humans. It is much more useful. The open enrollment of Xavier School is aimed at this group of people. In the future, the Delta-level Mutant will become the real mainstay of the Mutant group. When they graduated from Xavier School, they dispersed and returned to human society. Can you imagine what's going to happen? Neither Magneto nor Mystique answered this question. They can't help but imagine the picture Lynn painted. And it's just numb. There is no way. The impact on the worldview is too great. Chapter 42, Wilhelm Stryker. Mutant wants to shake the sky. As Magneto said, the X-Men documentary certainly set off a storm of public opinion around the world. But it is impossible for human officials to turn a blind eye. Almost every country reacted immediately, wanting to take X Daily off the shelves and block the dissemination of the documentary at the same time. But they couldn't do it. After the upgrade, Alice is an omnipotent god on the internet. No one can stop her except JRVS. In fact, after finding out that there was nothing they could do, the officials of Pretty Country found Tony very cleverly and wanted to use the power of JRVS. But Tony directly slapped him back. It's not a crime, and it doesn't endanger the safety of the public. What does it have to do with me, Iron Man? Tony wasn't being polite at all. Tang Tang, the president of the Stark Group, is not an official running dog. He had no prejudice against mutants, and after Lynn hinted that night, although he didn't really believe that his father was also a mutant, he also had an inexplicable sense of identity with the mutant group. With such a mentality, he even felt that Lynn did a pretty good job. Faintly, he still has a feeling. The significance of this documentary is not limited to this. Lynn, there's a second hand. As it turned out, after what happened that night at the expo, Tony knew Lynn better than most people. The X-Men documentary does have another role. It's a bait. Lynn is fishing. Mystique and Magneto are just the first fish to catch. Another fish. It's Wilhelm Stryker. Alkali Lake, a secret base hidden under the dam. The military's Weapon X program has been going on here for decades. As the person in charge of the project, Wilhelm Stryker worked wholeheartedly. Apart from arresting the mutant and finding suitable experimental subjects, he actually didn't care much about external affairs. But the X-Men documentary got here anyway. What followed was the public opinion that turned against Inktion outside. Boom! In the office, Wilhelm Stryker angrily threw away his mobile phone and smashed a hole in the computer in front of him. His face was so gloomy that it could almost drip water. You despicable mutant. This is trying to turn the world upside down. There is never a shortage of smart people in this world. He can be entrusted with important tasks by the military, and he is undoubtedly the smartest among smart people. And his attention to mutant is far more than many people. Therefore, he quickly linked a series of events, including the X-Men's adventure to save people, the release of the documentary, and the disappearance of Xavier Academy out of thin air. Then draw the conclusion. Mutant wants to reverse his image. This is to want to stand upright in the sun. Humph! Wilhelm Stryker snorted coldly, and the coldness flickered in his eyes. I told those idiots above that mutant couldn't believe it. Only when they're all wiped out can they rest easy. So what about Professor X helping us catch Magneto? How about being friendly to humans? How about X-Men's dedication to fighting mutant crime? It's all just a disguise. But what happened? It's fine if someone in the CIA colludes with Professor X, but someone in the White House plans to form a mutant affairs department and wants to rely on the power of mutant to solve the mutant problem. It's so stupid that it can't be cured. When he thought that only the military had been spying on Xavier Academy for such a long time, he was extremely angry. So at this moment, seeing those idiots being confused by a mere documentary, He actually felt inexplicably happy. It's just that this kind of fun only stayed for a moment. It was soon replaced by deep fear. "Colonel, the current situation is not good for us. The captain in charge of the security of the secret base is Wilhelm Stryker's absolute confidant." He frowned and said, "It seems that the X-Daily cannot be removed from the shelves, and there is no way to block the spread of the documentary. If this continues, more and more people will change attitude towards Mutant. What's the use of this?" Wilhelm Stryker glanced at him coldly. "Don't you think whether or not to eliminate Mutant depends on public opinion, rather than depending on the official attitude and the weapons in our military's hands?" The captain froze for a moment. His understanding of politics is obviously far inferior to that of his boss. Some ignorant people who don't know the truth, even if they sympathize with Mutant, they can't affect anything except spit on the internet. Wilhelm Stryker sneered. "That Professor X has never been a smart person. He used to try to please us in exchange for peace. But now he changed his method, thinking that by influencing a little public opinion, Mutant can stand in the sun. Ridiculous. He doesn't understand at all. The more Mutant jumps up and down like this, the more jealous those officials in the White House will be. Maybe someone has brought up the Mutant Registration Act now. It has to be said that his vision is extremely vicious. No wonder it can become the enemy of Mutant." The captain thought for a while after hearing the words and nodded thoughtfully. "However, the Xavier Manor has disappeared out of thin air now. We captured Professor X and controlled his plan to eliminate all mutants." After a pause, seeing that Wilhelm Stryker's face remained unchanged, the captain added, "Moreover, that documentary doesn't only affect ordinary people. If there are heavyweights from both the military and political circles, they will feel sympathy for Mutant. I heard that on the night of the Hammer Industry Expo, among the audience who were rescued by the X-Men, there were many big shots like state congressmen and consortium leaders." Wilhelm Stryker obviously thought of this long ago. Yeah, although public opinion can't turn the sky, it can't let it continue to ferment. He nodded slowly and pulled out a file from the drawer. "Also, to eliminate all mutants, the ability of Professor X is very important, and he must be drawn out." Seeing the photo on the file, the captain's pupils shrank suddenly. This blue-skinned, long-tailed mutant is not an experimental subject of the X-Weapon program. Instead, it was captured by Wilhelm Stryker and used the brain fluid of his son Jason to conduct controlled experiments. Jason is a mutant, and his ability creates illusions. Because he couldn't control his ability, he tortured his mother to death. Because of this, Wilhelm Stryker hated Mutant deeply. Nightcrawler has been controlled by Jason's brain fluid. So, is the plan to assassinate the president going ahead of schedule? Chapter 43, The Hunt Begins. Who is the hunter and who is the prey? A few days later, the Stark Industries CEO's office. When Tony came out of the laboratory, the first thing he saw was Lynn sitting on his luxurious sofa, sipping red wine leisurely. I said, "Are you free recently? Why do you run to me every day?" He also poured himself a glass of wine, casually. Tony asked with a puzzled face. "Definitely I'm looking for you." Lynn snapped her fingers, and there was a burst of movement in the temporary kitchen. Immediately afterwards, an automatically wrapped Ruggiamo floated out of it and slowly flew in front of Tony. Tony is no stranger to the magic of magic. He took the Ruggiamo, gnawed it with a mouthful of fragrance, and said with satisfaction, "Don't say that we are partners now, even if we are not, for the sake of the delicious food you prepared for me these days. What's the matter? Just say it." "Not yet." Lynn smiled, keeping her gaze on the TV. Suddenly, the TV screen flickered. Breaking news, reports live in Washington. The Oval Office of the White House was attacked by Mutant. The president and vice president were assassinated. When the voice came, Tony's complexion suddenly changed. Mutant assassinated the president. He finished the Ruggiamo in a few mouthfuls and looked at Lynn in disbelief. "Don't tell me. This is what you've been waiting for. How is it possible? I am not a prophet. Can I still predict?" Lynn glanced at him and shrugged innocently. "It's just that the download volume of X Daily has been a bit large recently, and the X-Men documentary has been widely spread. In this case, there will definitely be people who are dissatisfied with this. Just messing around. Tony was dubious. You mean someone assassinated the president to blame Mutant? We can't talk about putting blame on it. Lynn pointed to the surveillance screen shown on the TV. The assassin is indeed Mutant. Tony became more and more puzzled. Then you came to me for help to find this assassin? It's such a small matter. Why bother you? Lynn drank the red wine in the glass, got up slowly, and stretched. Please trouble the famous Iron Man to make a move. Definitely want to arrest someone. Looking for me? Arresting people. Subconsciously, Tony wanted to say don't make trouble. Although he has just upgraded the steel battle suit to another generation, he still has no confidence at all in the face of Lynn's strange magic. It's just to catch a mutant assassin. Maybe Lynn doesn't need to do it, right? X-Men can handle it. Still need yourself? Wait, a flash of inspiration flashed in Tony's mind, and he suddenly realized, you want me to be a witness? That's right. Lynn nodded frankly. The X-Men have no law enforcement power. Even if the assassin is caught, it is likely to be said to be a self-directed and self-acted scene to confuse the public. Tony, X-Men's reputation is very important. Tony's expression was somewhat weird. He also collected some mutant information recently, and with JR, VSS ability, even the highest official secrets can be browsed at will, so he knows a lot of secret things. Throughout the mutant group, the major organizations that have appeared, whether it's Hellfire Club, Mutant Brotherhood, or X-Men, all have one characteristic in their work style: ignore the rules. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, those mutants never seemed to think about seeking rights for mutants within the scope of the rules of human society. But the Lynn in front of him is completely different. He took the initiative to integrate into the rules, and even use the rules. This can be seen from what he is doing now. Alice, connect Katie. Lynn took out her mobile phone and first called Shadowcat. Are you in the academy now? Record a video for Charles and the others. Send it to the Mutant channel and say that the president's assassination is a big deal and X-Men will be there in a day. Catch the assassin and find out the truth. Clear. Shadowcat has been waiting for a long time, but there is no hesitation in response. Lynn continued. After the video is released, let Charles use the brainwave strengthening device to find the location of the assassin, and the X-Men will set off immediately. Hearing this, Tony subconsciously wanted to put on the battle suit, join the X-Men, and capture the assassin. Unexpectedly, Lynn's next words turn out to be, report the case to NYPD and say that you have found clues to the assassin. NYPD? Tony was stunned, thinking he heard it wrong. You asked the X-Men to go to NYPD? According to the information he has, Professor X seems to have some relationship with the CIA. If he wants to cooperate with the government, he should go to the CIA anyway. How did it get involved with NYPD? Before he could figure it out, Lynn had already disconnected and then made another call. Mr. Eddie Locke. According to our previous communication, if you can show up at the gate of the NYPD headquarters within half an hour, you will get a breaking news that will make the whole world remember your name. Great gift crab special. Mr. Lynn, aren't you really kidding me? On the other end of the phone, there was a slightly irritable voice. Although I am a reporter from the Global Daily, although I am eager to be promoted and raise my salary and become a top reporter, why do you think I will believe that someone who has never met people, a reporter from Global Daily? Tony was getting more and more disorganized. Isn't it just to catch a mutant assassin? Why did you find a reporter? What the hell is this Lynn up to? Mr. Locke, you are missing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Lynn said calmly. As a media practitioner, I believe you have read the news, and you know the news of the president's assassination. Before the sentence was finished, the breath on the other end of the phone suddenly became short. Is this news related to the assassination of the president? Eddie Bullock exclaimed, and then spoke at a speed Tony couldn't imagine. Wait for me. I will show up in 10 minutes. Then there was a series of pinging, 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 and bangs occasionally mixed with FK and shit. See Lynn hang up. Tony couldn't bear it anymore. Watched Lynn hesitate to speak, but opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Thousands of words finally turned into a sentence of emotion. Lynn, you're different from all the mutants. It's so different. Chapter 44, Beautiful Detective. How much preparation did that guy Lynn do? Facts have proved that for the freedom of the press, money and fame, the media can show amazing efficiency. In just 10 minutes, Eddie Locke stood at the gate of the NYPD headquarters. I don't know how many red lights I ran through along the way, but he didn't care about it. As long as he could get the first-hand news of the president's assassination, his status in the global daily would be greatly increased, and there was no suspense about his promotion and salary increase. At that time, money and beauties will have everything. Isn't that why you chose to become a reporter in the first place? And when he arrived at the destination, he found that the NYPD agents who came in and out were all talking about something with their mobile phones. After a little inquiry, he became more and more excited. The X-Men even issued a statement to catch the assassin within one day. His keen intuition as a reporter instantly made him feel that things were extraordinary. Something big is about to happen. He immediately called his boss, and after communicating with him as quickly as possible, he asked the other party to be ready for the on-site connection at any time. Sure enough, only 10 minutes later, a flight with a strange shape flew over from a distance and then hovered above the street in such an open and above-board manner. The drop valve opened and figures jumped down in the air. It is the X-Men quartet. X-Men, what are you doing in NYPD? Everyone who saw this scene was stupefied. Although recently, X-Men has gained a lot of fame on the internet, and many people have a good impression of it, and they're no longer as repulsive as before. However, appearing in such an above-board manner in Twisty City still made many people unacceptable. Eddie Locke is definitely not one of these people. For him, the big news is the biggest news. What is the mutant? What is the threat to human existence? What does it have to do with him? What surprised him was that after the appearance of the X-Men quartet, they went to the NYPD to report the crime completely according to the normal procedure. What? Have you found clues to assassinate the president? Already locked the assassin's location? Because the X-Men don't have law enforcement authority. So, come to NYPD to report? Let's send someone to arrest. Are you just assisting? After the agents of the NYPD General Bureau knew the purpose of Storm and others, they all froze on the spot. After working for so many years, this was the first time they received a report from Mutant. Haven't the X-Men been fighting against mutant crimes on their own? Why did it suddenly become normal? Are you still following the procedure? But how can there be any special process for this kind of thing? After receiving the report, the director of the General Administration was shocked and stunned, not to mention how tired he was. Now he just wanted to report to the higher-ups and kick this headache to the higher-ups. However, there were so many people outside who saw the X-Men and came to report the crime. Even reporters appeared. Even the cameras were set up. Is this accepted or not accepted? Mr. Director, the matter is urgent. Assassins will change positions at any time. We must rush there as quickly as possible. We don't have time to wait for your report to make a decision. You don't want to miss the opportunity to solve the assassination of the president, do you? Phoenix saw the director's hesitation and said straight to the point, "We just need you to send a police detective with a small team of detectives." As soon as these words came out, the director woke up with a startle. Correct. The assassination of the president is a major case that has caused a sensation all over the world. As long as the case is solved and the person is arrested, it is a great contribution to NYPD and to him, the director. As for what to do after catching the assassin, what does it have to do with me? That's a headache for the higher-ups. Thinking of this, the director glanced at the camera in Eddie Locke's hand and immediately said solemnly, "It is about the assassination of the president, and the NYPD has a duty to do so. No matter what happens, we must first catch the assassin." As he said that, he looked at the police detectives behind him. Who is willing to lead the team to carry out this mission? All the police detectives looked at each other, all acting like ostriches. They're all old fritters, and this kind of matter involving mutant is simply not something that small people at their level can get involved in. If the assassin is really caught, the chief must be credited. But the detectives who actually carry out the mission, God knows if you'll be targeted in the future. Whoever likes to do it will do it. Anyway, I won't do it. Almost all the police detectives had this thought in their minds, and they also believed that other people thought exactly the same as themselves. It's just that they didn't expect that. Almost at the moment when the director's voice fell, there was a voice of appraisal from the crowd. I go. A beautiful police detective with a slender waist, round buttocks, and long legs came out, dressed in leather and boots, with a determined expression, showing a heroic demeanor. Chief, I am Catherine Beckett, the homicide detective of the 12th Precinct. Lead the team on this mission. All the detectives stared wide-eyed. The inspector of the 12th Sub-Bureau should come to the headquarters to handle business, right? How dare you accept this matter in public? Isn't this a slap in the face of all the police detectives in the headquarters? Want to make meritorious deeds and want to go crazy? It can be seen that this detective named Catherine Beckett has a certain reputation in the NYPD system. After all, as a policewoman, she could be promoted to detective, and she is also the detective of the homicide team, which means she has outstanding ability. What's more, this woman is so beautiful. The superposition of the two has absolutely unlimited future. Because of this, the police detectives couldn't understand her choice. Didn't she understand that catching the assassin was a great achievement, but at the same time, she would also offend many leaders who rejected Mutant? The director made it clear that he was looking for the person responsible for it. It is good. Sure enough, when the director saw someone stand up, he ordered without any hesitation. Inspector Beckett, I give you 10 minutes to gather your agents and set off immediately. Yes. Catherine Beckett acted decisively and immediately picked up the phone. Don't be so troublesome. Just get on the plane and pick them up, Phoenix said with a smile. She didn't use her mind-reading ability, but she could tell that this beautiful police detective named Catherine definitely had something to do with Lynn. Thinking of Felicity and Skyfa, who have already officially started work in the headquarters of the Second World. She couldn't help, but her mind faltered for a while. That kid Lynn, who has been working on Oasis in the academy all these years, why does he have contact with so many outsiders? And they're all beauties. How much is that guy hiding? And how much preparation did you make? Chapter 45. Catch a turtle in a live broadcast. The blackbird is flying fast at high altitude. Among the fighters, Eddie Ballock's face was full of excitement. He had been allowed to communicate with the Global Daily after arriving at the destination. Global Daily is a media not inferior to Bugle Daily and Planet Daily. It has its own news channel and has a huge number of viewers. Thinking that, after the connection, I will appear on the screen and broadcast the arrest operation live to the audience. He trembled with excitement. Such a big event. How many audiences will it attract to watch? The ratings must not explode. After this incident is over, those damned vampires above can no longer stop me from being promoted. The salary I will be given at that time must be in line with the value of this news. In this case, mortgages and car loans will no longer be a problem. And Annie, if you are rich and famous, your marriage will be smooth. Thoughts were raging in his mind. Eddie Locke had already begun to fantasize about a better life in the future, and he was also full of gratitude to Mr. Lynn, whom he had never met. He knew very well that Mr. Lynn brought all this, although do not know the other party's purpose. But he can vaguely think of, my own value lies in my identity as a reporter from the Global Daily, so this live broadcast must not go wrong. That Mr. Lynn is very likely to be a mutant, and even the leader of these mutants. Just, why hasn't he shown up until now? With such doubts, the speed of the Blackbird fighter suddenly stagnated. Arrive, Storm, who was in charge of driving, said something, then turned his head to look at everyone. The coordinates provided by the professor are here. I'll wait here. You guys can make a quick decision. Don't worry, it will be done in 5 minutes. Wolverine Logan was smoking a cigar. A coldness flashed in his eyes. He has been waiting for this day ever since he regained his memory and had a secret conversation with Lynn. His bone claws are already hungry and thirsty. The Nightcrawler is hiding in a remote location, an abandoned church. After getting off the Blackbird fighter plane, everyone went straight into it. Cyclops, Phoenix, and Wolverine were in front, followed by Catherine Beckett with 5 or 6 agents. Eddie Locke was last. As soon as he entered the church, he set up the video camera and started connecting with the studio of Global Daily. Everyone, this is Eddie Locke's live broadcast. As everyone knows, half an hour ago, X-Men issued a statement claiming that within a day, the assassin who assassinated the president was captured. 20 minutes ago, because there was no law enforcement authority, X-Men went to NYPD to report the crime. NYPD sent Detective Catherine Beckett to lead a team of detectives to assist. And now, we have reached the place where the assassin is hiding. The picture was quickly transmitted to the studio. At the moment, outside the daily news studio of the Global Daily, the person in charge, who couldn't wait for a long time, inserted the picture immediately. As a result, all viewers who watched the channel suddenly found that the program had become news. What's the situation? Why are you interrupting the news at this time? And it's still a live broadcast. Many people were dissatisfied with this, and they wanted to change the channel when they were cursing, but when they heard the voice of Eddie Bullock, everyone was stunned. Great gift crab special. This is The X-Men Are Hunting Assassins. A reporter was involved in the arrest operation, and the whole process was broadcast live. And the NYPD, countless people's eyeballs dropped all over the floor. They never expected that they could participate in such an important event remotely. They picked up the phone and notified their relatives and friends who were not watching TV. As a result, 1 spread 10, 10 spread hundreds, and the number of people watching the live broadcast skyrocketed at an unimaginable speed. Eddie Bullock's boss couldn't close his mouth when he saw the background data. However, Eddie himself, who was at the scene, was calm on the surface and extremely nervous inside. The mutant hidden in the church dared to assassinate the president. As soon as this thought came to his mind, there were bursts of prayers in his ears. At the same time, in the middle of the church, a mutant with a whole body blue, a buttocks, a face, and a tail was kneeling on the ground, piously. Confessed to God. The gap between this scene and his imagination was so great that he didn't react for a while. And to hear his confession, what is he saying? Sinful. I don't know why it appeared in the White House. I don't know why the president was assassinated. The words of confession coming from the picture are not clear, so all viewers are confused. But it doesn't matter anymore. Cyclops and Phoenix are close. Sir, we are NYPD. Cyclops glanced at Catherine, who nodded and approached slowly with a gun. It's just that before she finished speaking, Nightcrawler's figure suddenly disappeared from her sight. And when she reappeared, she was on top of a tall beam. He can move instantly. The well-informed Cyclops immediately wakes up. Phoenix quickly stretched out his right hand. Psychokinesis launched. Nightcrawler's body was frozen instantly, and an invisible force restrained his whole body. He couldn't even move a single finger. Cool. Eddie Bullock let out a cry of surprise. He thought he would experience a fierce battle, but he didn't expect the X-Men to make a move and take down the target so easily. This news still lacks explosive points. Phoenix controlled the Nightcrawler to slowly descend and float in front of everyone. Out of professional habits, Catherine asked, "Sir, you are suspected of invading the White House and assassinating the president, and we are going to arrest you now." She still hadn't finished speaking. Suddenly, there was a loud noise from the ceiling, and then grenades fell like raindrops, scattered all over the church. White smoke gushed out of it. At the same time, dense footsteps came from outside. What's the situation? Everyone who saw this scene through the live broadcast was trembling. At this moment, even a simple-minded person, a thought flashed in their minds involuntarily. There's an ambush. Those smoke bombs are by no means unusual. Not only do they spread extremely fast, but they also contain a strong sleep-inducing function. The X-Men, NYPD, and others in the picture took a puff without paying attention, and they all fell down in unison. The X-Men who captured the assassin was caught by someone instead. Before everyone who saw this scene could react, they saw teams of heavily armed elite soldiers rushing in from all the entrances of the church, armed with various weapons. Most of them went straight to the fallen X-Men. A leader looked at the camera, picked up his rifle, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. The audience before the live broadcast subconsciously shrank back. Immediately afterwards, his complexion became extremely strange. The camera was shot and apparently no longer live. The screen is still there. Chapter 46, get everything in one fell swoop. Lynn's method. No one knows. It's on another beam on the right side of the church. Lynn, Magneto, and Mystique stood here, condescendingly watching what happened below. A transparent light shield enveloped the three of them. From the outside, it looked empty. Not even the slightest sound could be heard. It turns out that Wilhelm Stryker is your real target. Magneto's expression was extremely complicated. Compared to when he was just released from prison a few days ago, his spirit is much better, but the bewildered expression on his face is even worse than that. It seems that he still can't keep up with Lynn's methods. Lynn smiled slightly. See? You used the live broadcast of the Global Daily to let the whole world know that it was Wilhelm Stryker who controlled Nightcrawler to assassinate the president. And you used the credibility of the NYPD to convince those who watched the live broadcast that it was true. Magneto deserves to be Magneto. The matter has just begun, and he thought of many things. In this way, Wilhelm Stryker, no, the entire military can't explain it at all. It will only be swallowed by the anger of the White House, the political circles, and even countless people. The military secretly controls Mutant and wants to assassinate the president. This is a scandal that is enough to cause a sensation in the world. When the time comes, the military and the political circles will fall into infighting, and Mutant will be able to clear the suspicion. You can even get unexpected benefits, because many people will subconsciously think, are the murders committed by Mutant in the past also controlled by black hands behind the scenes? Are you blaming Mutant too? Every time he said something, Mystique's face changed slightly. Lynn nodded. Not everyone is thinking about getting rid of Mutant. Otherwise, the Mutant Registration Act wouldn't have remained unpassable. With his hands behind his back, his eyes are calm, but he has a penetrating charm. There is an old saying in the Dragon Kingdom, all the prosperity of the world is for profit, and the world is for profit. Those congressmen and politicians who support the Mutant Children Registration Act are just trying to conform to public opinion and win votes. Those who disapprove of dealing with Mutant may not mean it sincerely, and they may just do so, which will not do him any good. But so what? There's absolutely no need for mutants to be hostile to the entire human population. For those like Wilhelm Stryker who only want to eliminate Mutant, we will eliminate them with a backhand. For those who do not reject Mutant, we try our best to divide, win over, and even support them as spokespersons. In this way, more and more friends, fewer and fewer enemies. Mutant wants to walk in the sun dignifiedly. What's so difficult? Magneto and Mystique were speechless for a long time. The worldview formed over the years made them feel that this was an absurd idea. But when they thought about it carefully, they had to admit that it contained great wisdom that they had never thought of. Otherwise, why did Lynn achieve results with a little bit of trickery, but they still failed for decades? That's how you convince Charles. Magneto finally understood why Professor X indulged Lynn so much. He was thinking about Lynn's words and suddenly thought of something. He looked down at Catherine, who was handcuffed by his own handcuffs and other police detectives. This woman is the Delta-class mutant you mentioned? Yes, her ability is very weak, but her brain development level is slightly higher than that of ordinary people. Lynn nodded, then shook her head again. Actually, the agents under her command are all Delta-level mutants, and their physical fitness is much stronger than ordinary people, so it is easy to enter while deliberately hiding their identities. NYPD and the elite of it. Magneto suddenly realized. He definitely understood what Lynn meant. It's showing him the potential of a Delta-class mutant. It's not about super ability. It's about integrating into human society and controlling more voices. The purpose of bringing Catherine and others into this plan is to let the other party make great contributions, spread their reputation to the White House, and gain huge amounts of prestige in the police circle. Then support him step by step and become the spokesperson of Mutant in the police circle. Then, what about the reporter? Suppressing the throbbing in his heart, Magneto asked again, is he also a mutant? Lynn glanced at the unconscious Eddie Locke and smiled. He's not. It's just an idle move. An ordinary Global Daily reporter, although valuable, is not too big. But in the future, if he is possessed by venom, that's another matter. Okay, I still have a lot of questions, so I'll just say them all at once. Magneto took a deep breath, looked away suddenly, and stared at Lynn with burning eyes. First, how do you know this is a conspiracy? Wilhelm Stryker is using Nightcrawler as bait to lure Charles out. Did you forget that I have been monitoring the prison where you are being held? Lynn patiently explained. Wilhelm Stryker often visits you, uses the special liquid medicine developed from his son's brain fluid to control your mind, and makes you tell a lot about Xavier's school, the most of which is it's a brainwave strengthening device. Magneto's eyes flashed. So what? The brainwave strengthening device can only be used by Charles. So how could Wilhelm Stryker be interested in it? Lynn smiled. Obviously, his target is not just the strengthening device, but also Charles. If he can control Charles with brain fluid, he can easily kill all mutants instantly. But now, Xavier's school has disappeared out of thin air, and he can't find Charles. In this way, using the assassin who attacked the president as bait to lure the snake out of the hole is his only choice. Isn't it? Magneto gasped. He became more and more sure of his guess. Transferring Xavier's school was not just for hiding, but also for a more important purpose, which was to lure Wilhelm Stryker. Luring the snake out of its hole. Wilhelm Stryker is the snake. His reaction was beyond Lynn's expectations. But how do you know that he will control Nightcrawler to assassinate the president? The more Magneto thinks clearly, the more doubts in his heart. This is the premise of all plans. If Wilhelm Stryker hadn't done this, none of what is happening today would have happened. For this, Lynn definitely won't say it because he knows the plot well. He thought for a while and said, there are many kinds of magic, and one of them is a very special branch called prophecy magic. Prophecy. Both Magneto and Mystique lost their voices, which was extremely unbelievable. The two looked at each other and were about to talk again. Lynn has already said it for them. You must still want to ask since I know about Wilhelm Stryker's plan, and I'm going to use it. Why do I let the X-Men make a high-profile statement? In this way, if he gets the news, it is very likely will you notice the anomaly and cancel this operation? That's right. Mystique couldn't hold back any longer and said, also, Wilhelm Stryker must have known about Eric's escape from prison. He's not an idiot. Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted. Not Lynn. It's Magneto. It was because I escaped that Wilhelm Stryker had to carry out this operation, because the only bait he used to lure Charles into the bait, which was me, was gone. When he said this, he looked at Lynn's eyes and was completely numb. So, even my jailbreak is in your plan, right? Lynn shrugged, non-committal. Mystique gasped. How did the young man in front of him have a brain? From the beginning to the end, Wilhelm Stryker hadn't even met him, and probably didn't even know of his existence. But he had already been played by him. In the applause, Mystique has no doubts that with Lynn's strength, he can easily crush Wilhelm Stryker. But he didn't do that. Instead, use what Wilhelm Stryker did to benefit mutant. Hit the military, divide humans, support Catherine, building a positive image of the X-Men, further deepening the public's sympathy for mutant. What kind of means is this? Thinking of this, Mystique trembled uncontrollably and unconsciously felt a sense of awe towards Lynn. She was more excited than ever. This is the worship of the strong in his bones. So, in front of Magneto, she looked at Lynn and asked for instructions. The premise of all this is to expose the truth about Wilhelm Stryker's assassination of the president. Now that the X-Men are captured, shouldn't it be time for us to take action? Magneto's complexion changed suddenly. Lynn was calm. Who told you that the X-Men were captured? The Demon Heart Girl was taken aback. Looking further down, the situation has changed drastically. Chapter 47, Self-Exposure. It was Captain Adam Robert, Wilhelm Stryker's confidant, who was in charge of the arrest operation. He was born in the Navy SEALs, and his military literacy is extremely strong. His subordinates are also special elites. But after all, he had to face mutant elites like X-Men. Before he acted, he was actually ready to fight to the death. But I didn't expect. Things went so smoothly. Could it be that our own preparations are too sufficient? Although the special medicine mixed in those smoke bombs is one of the latest research and development achievements of Warthen Laboratory, its sleep-inducing effect is dozens of times stronger than similar medicines. Even if it is a mutant, as long as it takes a sip, it will be comatose for several hours. Cannot all of them will be recruited, right? Under the gas mask, Adam Robert frowned, always feeling that something was wrong. Boss, the mutant who stayed outside want to come in to save people, but we also got rid of it. The sound from the earphones made him feel a little more relaxed. Either way, mission success is always a good thing. In sight, the team members wearing gas masks acted quickly, took out needles one by one, and injected Wolverine and the others to avoid accidents. Against mutant, they have a lot of experience. After checking it again, a subordinate came to report. Colonel, everyone is checked, and no target was found. FK, Adam Robert cursed fiercely, took out the special communicator equipped with him, and connected with Wilhelm Stryker via video. The connection went very smoothly. Wilhelm Stryker's face appears in the frame. Adam, mission accomplished? Yes, Colonel, but Professor X didn't show up. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Adam Robert had a faint feeling that the boss in the video seemed a little different, but he still dutifully reported. At the same time, point the camera at the scene and scan it to let the other party see clearly. It doesn't matter, I caught the X-Men, don't worry about not being able to find a chance, and draw Professor X out. Wilhelm Stryker seems to have expected this long ago, and was not surprised. As long as Professor X is captured and his brainwave strengthening device is obtained, we will use his super psychic ability to destroy all mutants at once. Half the battle. Adam, you've done a great job. I'll report to the higher-ups when you come back from the team, and I'll give you credit for it. Adam Robert was overjoyed. Seeing that the smoke in the church had cleared, he simply took off his gas mask and respectfully saluted the screen. It's all planned by the Colonel. I'm just performing my duties. Don't be humble, Adam. Wilhelm Stryker smiled. Eliminating mutant is my wish for many years. If you can help me realize this wish, I will never treat you badly. Thank you, Colonel. Adam Robert was very excited, but then frowned again. By the way, Colonel, there was a little accident at the scene. People from NYPD came for some reason, and there was also a reporter from Global Daily who seemed to be connecting on the scene. Live connection. Wilhelm Stryker's face changed instantly. You let the camera capture it? No. Adam Robert shook his head hastily. We all wore gas masks, and after I came in, I destroyed the camera as soon as I came in, and I definitely didn't get caught. That's good. Wilhelm Stryker breathed a sigh of relief. As long as your identities are not exposed, even if the audience saw it, they can only guess wildly. If they suspect us, just refuse to admit it. Yes, Colonel. Adam Robert nodded, and then asked, So, what should we do with these people? Should we bring them back together? Bring them back? Are you going to imprison them forever? Wilhelm Stryker sneered. We use Jason's brain fluid to control the Nightcrawler's assassination of the president. As long as there's a slight possibility of it being leaked, you, including me, will be finished. You don't understand such a simple truth. The killing intent in this sentence is not concealed. Adam Robert was startled. But Colonel, these people shouldn't have seen us. So what? Do you dare to bet? Wilhelm Stryker interrupted without any hesitation. To eliminate the mutant, we are fighting for the life and death of human beings, and there must be no accidents. Not even a little bit. He stared coldly at Adam Robert. You should know what to do, right? Adam Robert swallowed. After hesitating for a few seconds, he nodded heavily. Understood, Colonel. There's also that Nightcrawler, whose value is to assassinate the president, making the White House and the public hate mutant, agreeing to our plan to eliminate mutant. Now that the task is completed, his value is gone. Let's solve it together. Wilhelm Stryker nodded in satisfaction and casually added, I feel disgusted when I see his blue skin. Yes, Adam Robert promised in a deep voice and gestured to his subordinates with his eyes. The subordinates received the order, and although hesitation lasted for a moment, they still picked up their rifles and came in front of Catherine, Eddie, and others. Da-da-da, after several gunshots, Eddie and others lost their lives in a coma. Soon after, Nightcrawler also ate the gun. This scene fell in the eyes of Wilhelm Stryker. He adjusted his glasses happily. Pray for me in the church. They died for the great cause of destroying mutant. God will remember them. As soon as these words came out, even Adam Robert and others were soldiers whose bounden duty was to obey orders. They couldn't help feeling sick. But Wilhelm Stryker didn't seem to feel it at all. I'm going to open the champagne now. And when you come back to celebrate, I am extremely excited when I think that all the mutants will be wiped out soon. At this moment, there seemed to be an imperceptible wind blowing through the church. Adam Robert was in a trance for a while, and he didn't know what the reason was. He asked, "Colonel, your son Jason is also a mutant. If the plan succeeds, he will die too. He should have died long ago." Wilhelm Stryker was stunned, and his face suddenly became ferocious. Since he awakened that damn super ability, the only value is to become my experimental subject. If it wasn't for the hallucinogenic effect of his brain fluid and the ability to control Professor X, you think I'll keep him until now? A sudden roar resounded throughout the church. Adam Roberts' heart trembled violently. At the same time, the strange feeling in my heart became stronger and stronger. As Wilhelm Stryker's confidant, he definitely knows that this boss hates mutant, and he used his son as an experiment inhumanely, but deep down he still has some father-son affection for Jason. Can't you say such a thing? What's wrong? It was too late to think again. The video had been unilaterally cut off. Adam Robert took a deep breath and was about to lead his men to retreat. Suddenly, there was a loud bang above the head. Chapter 48, The End of Wilhelm Stryker. A red and silver two-color mecha penetrated the roof of the church and appeared in sight. Under the sunlight, it looked like a god descended from heaven. The mask was opened, and Tony Stark stood in the air, looking at them blankly. What are you doing, kindness?" Adam Robert was taken aback, but before he could react, the surrounding scene suddenly changed drastically. The loud noise that Iron Man smashed through the roof seemed to tear open an invisible light curtain. As the light curtain slowly disappeared, Catherine, Eddie, and others lying in a pool of blood disappeared like bubbles. The same goes for Wolverine, Phoenix, and others on the other side. Everyone is gone. Watching this scene, Adam Robert and the others were horrified. Everyone subconsciously raised their weapons to look for the target, but only heard a light cough from the corner. They turned to look. The targets that were restrained by them not long ago were all standing there quietly. It's just that the eyes of the X-Men are full of teasing, but Catherine, Eddie, and the others who were clearly dead were shocked. Great crab special. Adam Robert was stunned as if struck by lightning. What's happening here? Adam Robert never dreamed that his actions just now, as well as his connection with Wilhelm Stryker, were all broadcast live. The audience saw it. The president and vice president in the White House also saw it after receiving the news. Even Wilhelm Stryker himself, FG, saw it. Yes, Wilhelm Stryker is a person who is afraid of death, so he didn't personally preside over the operation, but he has been watching the result of this mission in the base. Because of this, after the X-Men released the statement, he had already seen it immediately with his IQ and city government. He sensed something was wrong at that time and quickly wanted to cancel the operation, but found that he couldn't get in touch with this action team no matter what. Therefore, like other viewers, he can only watch his subordinates through the live broadcast screen and connect with himself live. Then they revealed all their plans to themselves. Wilhelm Stryker directly collapsed. FK, FK, FK. Unprecedented anger rushed straight to his forehead, and he couldn't restrain his whole body from trembling. At this point in the matter, he still didn't understand that this plan to catch the turtle in the urn failed from the very beginning. I am the turtle that was caught. This is a trap for yourself. Fake, fake, fake. Everything is fake. There must be a mutant that I don't know about. It has the ability to create illusions. It dominates all of this, and let everyone see it through the live broadcast. But even so, how did the X-Men know about my plan? They know that I plan to assassinate the president. They know that my target is a brainwave strengthening device, and they even know that my son is a mutant. How do they know everything? What exactly is going on? There were so many questions in his mind that Wilhelm Stryker felt like his head was about to explode. He couldn't accept the scene at all and almost thought he was dreaming. He can't figure out. I can only let the anger rampage in my body. And then, panic. He definitely knows that the live broadcast is an illusion, and even everyone in the base knows that he has never left. So he can completely disregard his relationship with the Atom team, and in turn accuse the X-Men of slandering him. But he knew very well that it didn't make any sense, because it doesn't matter whether the live broadcast is real or not. What matters is the content of the conversation between he and Adam Robert. Every sentence is true. He really took control of Nightcrawler to assassinate the president. His son is really a mutant. Just these 2 points are enough to make him beyond redemption. The wrath of the White House and the people will consume him completely. The real purpose of the other party is to make these 2 things public to the public through the live broadcast. Damn X-Men, damn mutant, damn Adam Roberts. Wilhelm Stryker almost gritted his teeth. Before the live broadcast was completely over, the phones in the entire base rang, and he looked out the glass window. After each soldier answered the phone, they all looked towards his office with strange expressions. He definitely knew who those calls were from. White House, the top military. He can find a way to appease the anger of the former. But the latter, he has no doubt that if such a bad political scandal occurs, the people above will give up on him without hesitation and put all the responsibility on him. The reasons are all there. Your son is mutant. How can you still be in charge of the Weapon X program against mutant? Professor X. No, there must be another person hidden behind him. Clearly, even this has been calculated. This is to kill them all. Thinking of this, Wilhelm Stryker felt that all the strength in his body disappeared, and he slumped on the chair with a bang, knowing clearly that he had reached the end. It's over. Do not. It's not over yet. In the end, it was the ruthless guy who almost wiped out all the mutants. While flustered, Wilhelm Stryker still retained a sliver of reason. As long as I don't go to prison, I still have time and opportunities. Thinking of this, he quickly got up and went straight to the tarmac deep in the base. But the moment he opened the door didn't move at all. Immediately afterwards, a playful electronic sound suddenly sounded on the radio in the base. Mr. Wilhelm Stryker, according to my master, you are not allowed to leave this base right now. After the upgrade, Alice's intelligence level was significantly higher, and Wilhelm Stryker even heard a hint of playfulness. Because soon, my master will come to visit. Wilhelm Stryker's face was finally pale. His own base has been invaded? He thought of the weird situation at the church for a moment. Even though the reporter could still connect live, he couldn't get in touch with Adam Robert and the others. It turned out that the other party had not blocked the signal near the church, but on my own side, blocked in the base. This time, it's really over. Chapter 49, The Inhuman Butcher Must Go to Hell. Wilhelm Stryker was right. With the live connection of Global Daily, all the viewers who watched the live broadcast were blown up. What's the situation? The camera is gone. Why is the live broadcast still there? How did the military ambush the X-Men here? It feels like there's an inside story. At the beginning, except for a few people who had a good impression of X-Men, most of the other people were watching the excitement. Even when they saw the video call between Adam Robert and Wilhelm Stryker, many people just thought that this was an ordinary operation of the military. After all, it's normal to be hostile to mutant these days. However, when Wilhelm Stryker himself revealed his plan to capture Professor X and use the brainwave strengthening device to eliminate all mutants, some people frowned slightly. Destroy all mutants in the world? This is too cruel. Although I don't know why the brainwave strengthening device has such great power, but this kind of unscrupulous slaughter of a race is difficult for many people living in the civilized world. Before he had time to think about it, he heard Wilhelm Stryker reveal that he controlled the mutant to assassinate the president. This time, one stone caused 1,000 waves. All audiences are dumbfounded. God, the person who assassinated the president was not a mutant, but a military colonel? Isn't this the same guy in the X-Men documentary who experimented on Wolverine? The Weapon X project he is in charge of has many ordinary people. What kind of grudge does this guy have against Mutant? For your own selfishness, how dare you assassinate the president and blame Mutant? This is playing us all for fools, stirring up our hatred for Mutant and getting the president to agree to his plan. How dare he do such a big thing as a colonel? Is there any military order behind it? Great gifts and crab specials. From this point of view, the military is stabbing the president in the back. Wow. Countless people were so shocked that their jaws dropped to the ground. And immediately after that, there was a scene of shooting Catherine, Eddie, and others in the picture. Public opinion exploded from this moment. Then, the image of Wilhelm Stryker changed from an unscrupulous careerist to a murderous demon. That's a detective from the NYPD. There are also reporters from the Global Daily. How dare they? It's crazy. This Wilhelm Stryker is crazy. In the minds of countless people, this idea appeared at the same time, and when they heard that Wilhelm Stryker's son turned out to be a mutant and became his experimental subject, a chill surged straight to the top of the sky. It turned into a monstrous rage. Only then did they discover that the evil of the human heart is far more terrifying than the mutation of genes. The military actually let such an evil person become a colonel and also presided over such an evil X-weapon program. What exactly is it trying to do? He dared to slaughter all the mutants today. Will he point his guns at ordinary people tomorrow? Don't forget, there are many ordinary people in his experimental subjects. The military should be heroes who protect the people, not inhuman butchers. Such a person should go to hell. At this time, there were still some smart people who discovered the strangeness, but they were quickly overwhelmed by this wave of anger. This is something wrong. We can all see the news from the Global Daily, but can't Wilhelm Stryker see it? Why is he still talking to his subordinates? He must not have read the news. He didn't know that the X-Men found the NYPD and reporters. How is this possible? With such a meticulous plan, will he not pay attention to the mutant channel? He can't even see the X-Men statement. Ha ha ha. Didn't you realize this guy is a complete lunatic? He is too confident in himself. That's right. He even dared to assassinate the president. What else can he do? He probably didn't even know that he was being broadcast live. Amidst the heated discussions, Iron Man was born. Immediately afterwards, the illusion arranged by Lynn disappeared, and everyone in the X-Men reappeared in sight.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.